Welcome to Pigskins and Pageantry, a podcast dedicated to all things SEC football. My name is Wes, and I'd like to invite you to join me, Jesse, and Matt each week as we discuss last week's games, news from around the league, make predictions for the upcoming games, and much, much more. And what's up, everybody? It's Wes. Welcome to Season 6 of Pigskins and Pageantry. Part of me is like, is this real life? Like, I guess time flies when you're having fun, but we made it through the long, grueling, hot summer off-season. Let's be honest, we're in the Southeast, so it's still hot, but the off-season's over and football is back. If this is your first time joining us, we like to mix up the viewpoints here. We like to demonstrate that the different fandoms can have a conversation, enjoy some good banter, yet remain friends at the end of the evening. We'll see, but that's the intent. In that spirit, we've got me, the Georgia fan, Jesse, the Alabama fan, and Matt, the Tennessee fan, who is in high demand and couldn't join us tonight. But we have another Vol for Life ready to step in his absence, who we'll introduce in a moment. But first off, Jesse, how are you? How was your off season without football?
It's always grueling, but I've already started to get a little bit of football at work, which is really fun. And even though it was like middle schoolers and it was only flag, whatever, we'll take it. The parents are just as intense as SEC fans. So it was a good little kickoff to starting our next season, but so far so good. And the revenge tour is about to begin.
Oh gosh, here we go. Starting already. So as I mentioned before, we have a guest in from Matt. He's a good friend from work, somebody I've been able to have spirited but respectful conversations about football with around the water cooler. Just kidding, there is no water cooler in our office. Anyway, Grant, welcome to the show. How was your off season?
Thanks, Wes. Thanks for having me. Off season was long, as a Tennessee fan, diehard Vol. Baseball was a little underwhelming for us. I know we expected big things, and we did fairly well, won the SEC, but couldn't bring home, the trophy there. But in any case, otherwise, been looking forward to football since for a little longer than you guys have, at least. But yeah, no, it's been good. I'm ready to get it started again.
I hear you. Well, hey, speaking of getting it started, let's just go ahead and get right into it. We'll talk about each team's news.
Here's the news.
All right, so I'm going to go through each one of these teams in their offseason, try to summarize the state of each team, as well as kind of note key positions to look for. Trust me, names will be mispronounced, so I apologize beforehand, but some of these names I've only read about at this point, and so certainly we'll hear more as the season unfolds. But first off, let's start off with Vanderbilt. The Commodores, they went 2-10 last year, 0-8 in the conference. This is being recorded after their first game, so things are a little bit more optimistic. We can talk about that later as well. But at SEC Media Days, head coach Clark Lee, with a bold statement, said, "We know that in time, Vanderbilt football will be the best program in the country." Jesse, you shouldn't laugh.
You all wanted to. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You guys are like, don't do that. I'm just doing what everybody else is thinking.
It's true. Coach
I think you meant like best academically.
Yeah,
and they are. They're so good.
They are.
Yeah.
And they are winning in
so
terms
smart.
of city location as well. Their city is wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Coach Lee's first year wasn't spectacular, but I think the hope is for him to use his defensive expertise to build a team with a tough physical identity, hopefully be reflected on the offensive side of the ball as well. They're hoping that their three returning starters on the offensive line will help with stability, allowing Rocco Griffin to break some runs. And we saw some of that in the game this past weekend. And they hope to see more of Temple transfer Raymond Davis, who missed a lot of time due to injury. Mike Wright and Ken Seals battled it out for the quarterback position in the offseason. Sounded like Seals was kind of trending to start, but Mike Wright got the start against Hawaii. And he showed out 4 total touchdowns, 2 passing, 2 rushing. And we can talk more about that game in a little bit. But defense for Vanderbilt has a experienced group. They had 2 fumble returns for touchdowns in that game. And so though the defense was pretty awful a year ago, it should be better this year, as we've already kind of seen.
Not going to get much worse.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, so Jesse, I would like to start with you. Obviously we've kind of talked a little bit about this, but how does Vanderbilt win a game in the conference this year?
That's a great question. And I think that's the question Coach Lee is probably asking himself, because unfortunately Vanderbilt is in the SEC. That's tough. They're a very tough academic school. They're not a program that's one of the SEC juggernauts, and the SEC just continually keeps getting better. Programs that, have touted it's our year. Georgia, they finally got one. There's very few SEC programs that haven't had either a national championship show or won one in recent years. So Vanderbilt is still in that group where it's not looking so great. It's not an impossible situation to win an SEC game for them, but they need to find their role and their niche in the SEC. And I don't know what that is, but we've got to find it. And it needs to trend past academics into athletics, specifically football. They're great at baseball. I think you hit a good point. Defense tends to be Coach Lee's, bread and butter. I think he can do that there. He's also historically a decent recruiter. It's just still very hard to recruit at Vanderbilt. Again, not impossible, but still kind of difficult. They're not going to trend and be amazing overnight. It's going to be something you have to build at, and they're going to get better. This is a great start, winning by such a large margin this past weekend. But going into the SEC, I think a big thing for them is they have to believe that they can do it, because right now nobody thinks they can. And
Mindset,
I doubt that they think they can. So they've got to believe they can do it. They've got to be strong on defense, because everybody just blew them out of the water. And for me, I think you've got to establish wholeheartedly who your quarterback is. We've got to know who's the guy at the helm of this. And for me, those are kind of the three keys right there. There's obviously a lot more, but I'd start with those three. We can't bite off too much.
Mike Wright certainly made his case last weekend. Grant, I know Vanderbilt's kind of Tennessee's little brother of sorts. Well, what are your thoughts on their chances this year?
Yeah, no, I mean, Jesse hit on some key points there. They've got to pretty much fix everything.
Fix it all.
I mean, and you see that you see that first game against Hawaii, and you wonder just how bad is Hawaii, or maybe did Vanderbilt get a little bit better, right? Because just on top of everything, it's pretty much a whole culture shift for them. Like you guys talked about the mentality aspect. They've really got to start believing in themselves, believing they can win, and I think that's what Clark Lee is trying to go in and do for them. I mean, it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of losses, but I mean, they've already have their win total from last year. So, they got to be feeling good about that. And they've got a good matchup against Elon this week. We'll talk about that later, but they've got to get some recruits in there and get them coached up. And, I'm interested to see what Clark Lee, if he sticks around, how he's going to do in about year 4.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's not impossible. Look at what Franklin did there. He really had them headed in the right direction, and then he was like, peace out. But, up until that point, he got them going. And so I had a bit of a problem with Clark Lee saying that at first, but then I thought about it and I was like, but in order to win, you have to believe that you can win first, and you have to have that kind of swagger first. So maybe his players listen to that and they're like, maybe it's possible. Maybe not now.
His players like him. Everything I've read is that Clark Lee, he's a fan favorite. There are fans of Vanderbilt, and they did like the Clark Lee hire. So, believe it or not, I mean, as a Tennessee fan, I've got to kind of bash on him a little bit there. But I think it's a good hire. I think it's a good fit for Vanderbilt. And again, I think if they just give them time, and I mean, especially with this whole NIL thing now. If they can pay a little money and get some big names in there, especially, kind of the key skill positions, quarterback, running back, if they can get some of those guys in and kind of gel together, then they have a shot at starting to win some games. And then obviously you guys know that translates to, better recruiting and more wins. So, I mean, it's just going to be a process.
Yeah. Well, the pockets aren't empty up there. So NIL is a possibility for them. So, All right, let's move on to Texas A&M. Last year, they were 8-4 overall, 4-4 in the conference, including a surprise win against Alabama. And I think we all remember that, some of us more than others. A&M's, but see, that's the thing is like they'll have that breakthrough win, right? And then just lose to people that they shouldn't.
Oh, we'll talk about it.
But anyway, their A&M's patience has got to be growing thin. They keep getting talent and paying coaches and getting talent. But so far that hasn't translated to a championship. Haynes King has won the starting quarterback job over LSU transfer Max Johnson and 5-star recruit Connor Wigman. Jalen Weidermeyer is in the NFL now, so receiving core is going to look a little bit different. They're going to have to step it up. Ania Smith did lead the team last year with 47 catches and 6 scores, so we'll see if that continues. 5-star wide receiver Evan Stewart will need to get involved early. With Isaiah Spiller gone, one of their great running backs in recent memory, they will likely look to speedster Devon Akane, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, to continue production on the ground. His 9 touchdowns and 910 yards led the team last year. O-line should be solid as well. A&M was 7-0 last year when it allowed fewer than 20 points and 1-4 when it didn't. They lost just about all their defensive stars from last year. Enter the ridiculous A&M recruiting class, which is full of 5 stars on defense. They're talented but young, obviously. So we'll see how things go. Secondary is the one portion that should remain solid with returning starters. So, that's kind of where A&M is right now. Grant, I'll start with you this time. What are your expectations for A&M? Can Jimbo get breakthrough wins? Can he not lose to people he's not supposed to lose to? What do you think?
Well, that's the big question mark, and kind of touching back on that NIL thing. This is one school that is not in short supply of money. So, yes, they put together a great recruiting class, but like you said, they are young. I think Devin A-Chain is one of the best running backs in the league. The guy is super fast, super elusive. Looking at their schedule, it sets up pretty well for them. Obviously they play at Alabama. That's going to be a tough one, but Texas A&M, I don't know if you guys have heard the moniker for them of Texas 8-4. It's pretty funny. Over the last few decades, their average win-loss ratio is like 8.1 and 3.9 win-loss. And if you break it down into different decades, it's 8-4 pretty much every decade for the last 5. So can they get past 8-4? Yeah. So I definitely see at least 9 wins on their schedule. I think they're going to be tough. No doubt about that. Jimbo's a great coach. They do need to improve offensively. I was looking it up earlier. I think they averaged somewhere around 390 yards per game last season, which was bottom third of the SEC. So if they can step it up offensively, which I think they're going to be able to do with Haynes King, he's promising they've got good backups. Like I said, A-Chain's a beast. If they can step it up offensively, I think defense is going to help them out. I definitely see them winning 9 or 10 games at least.
Okay. Jesse, I know I don't need to ask what you think about Jimbo, but we are
2022, and I still hate Jimbo Fisher.
I was going to say, there's no doubt there, and it's only going to get better as the show goes along. By the way, I cannot.
As the summer went on, and he argued with our Lord and Savior Nick Saban.
I cannot wait. Oh, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that, and I cannot wait. Yeah. So his numbers are very Kevin Sumlin-esque. Meanwhile, he's getting paid a lot more money. So I'm not necessarily an adherent to that, being listening to Kirby Smart's Mark Richt 2.0 for so many years. I'm not saying that about the guy, but especially when you're paying him all this money and you're an A&M fan, you have to be wondering when are we going to break through? What are your thoughts, Jesse?
In the state of Texas, you're a program that didn't have a national championship in your previous conference. You don't have a national championship in your current conference, or even showing up in one in your current conference. And you play football in the state of Texas, and people still think of UT over you.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, and look at the state of that program.
Right.
Jimbo Fisher, as far as records, it's fine. Nationally, it's fine. He's 34-14 with 3 big bowl wins in 4 seasons. He only has 1 year so far with fewer than 4 losses. That's fine, except he plays in the SEC, where it's not fine.
Right.
And guess what their record was last year? 8-4. So that is 23 out of the last 26 years, going back to Grant's point, where they've had 4 or more losses. If you lose 4 or more at LSU, at Georgia, at Florida, at Auburn, people start looking up Hugh Freeze's number or anybody else that's available that's previously coached in the SEC. So Jimbo Fisher has a very large price tag with not that much to back it up with. Now, the win against Bama last year helped him so much. But this year, you're going into another season and you're going to have to do better than 8-4. They have talent, they have athleticism, and they've got depth now that they've brought in so many recruits that are highly touted, but they don't have consistency and haven't. And until they do that, they're going to hang out in the SEC with Ole Miss, Kentucky, and Vandy because they haven't shown up in a national championship either. And they lost almost all of their defensive starters. So somebody's going to have to show up for Jimbo Fisher this season, or he might want to start looking at, I don't know, just like some timeshares in Florida or something.
Well, he's already lived in Florida for a little while, so he's a little inconsistent there as well. So we'll see if he gets over that hump this year. So, all right, let's talk about those Tennessee Volunteers, shall we? Last year they were 7-6 overall, 4-4 in the conference. There you go. Grant's like, I'm ready to get hurt again.
Where's that sound clip?
Every year.
Right. I need that one.
We're rebuilding.
Tennessee, okay, they had their fireworks on offense last year. Expect more of the same this year with Hendon Hooker. A lot of those puzzle pieces back. O-line hopes that they can pass protect better. They blocked well for the run game, but they allowed 44 sacks. That's 3.4 per game, the most in the SEC. So they're going to have to do a better job of protecting him. The real question, though, is will the defense get better? And I know, Vols fans are really mulling that same question. Last year, they gave up 500 or more overall yards in 5 of the last 10 games. So I'll get out of order here because I want to go ahead and get with you, Grant, on Tennessee. What are your thoughts on the Vols this year?
Well, I do this every year. I put on those orange sunglasses and I start thinking, this is going to be the year, man. Like, we're going to beat Bama finally. But so what do I really think? I do kind of take a step back. I know I'm new here, but I do consider myself a very realistic Tennessee fan. But on that same note, I think we're going to be good. I really do. I mean, not like great, not a playoff contender or even an SEC contender, really. But I think we're going to win at least 8 games. I'm actually thinking 9-3. But we're looking at the stats from last year of the sacks and how many per game and whatnot. Well, with Heupel's offense, a lot of the plays were designed, quarterback keepers, quarterback runs, things like that. And so, I mean, a lot of times, the offensive line wasn't great, but we get caught in the backfield, whatever. But that does contribute to the number of sacks and things like that. Defense is a huge question mark. We do have a little bit more depth this year, specifically in the secondary. It seems, reading from practice reports, kids are stepping up, ready to go. The offensive line looks like they're going to be actually improved from last year. We do have a couple of question marks. We've only got 2 really kind of tried running backs, Jabari Small and Lenneth Whitehead. Both of them are kind of battling some little fall camp injuries, but wide receiver wise, we're going to be really good. We got Tillman, we got the transfer Brew McCoy. I think, Hendon Hooker, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, not trying to be biased there. But looking at our schedule, I think it's definitely possible we could head into the Florida week undefeated, which that'd be huge. And if we could beat them, roll into the LSU game at LSU, but we'll talk about LSU a little bit later. But I really think this could be a really good season. And I know Jesse kind of dinged Texas A&M for being the 8-4, but hey, if we can go 8-4, I'm all about it, because being a Vols fan, you guys have dealt with Matt for the last, 5 seasons, but for me, all my life, I mean, it's been tough. But I think Heupel's a good coach. I think the team loves him. The culture's changing. So I'm thinking 8 or 9 wins regular season. Hey, maybe even a New Year's 6 game. So we'll see.
Well, you make an interesting point there with some of the games that they get started against. They definitely have the opportunity to get rolling early. You're going to face Pitt without Kenny Pickett. So should have a better chance there. If you can get into Florida, at 3-0 and then manage to pull off a win against them, things are looking good, right? Yeah. So, wow. Yeah, it's definitely possible. What do you think, Jesse?
It's 2022 and I still hate Tennessee. That's where I'm at. No, but I mean, I think let's bring us back to last season, right? There's been
you're required to hate them though, right? I mean, that's like it's just a thing. Yeah.
I'm bred to hate. Yeah, I have to hate them. It's fine. No one expects me to like them as a Bama fan. Right. But last season and going back several years, you guys have had a lot of turnover at the coaching position. It's been a lot. There's been so much hype for these coaches coming in, and then it's kind of deflated. Then you get Heupel, and I think everyone probably wanted more than a 7-6 season, but that's great for a rebuilding year. That's not bad. Yeah. Look at Vanderbilt. So it would have been nice to be more competitive against Georgia, against Alabama, against Florida, against Ole Miss, and probably Purdue. But
whoa! Not the Ole Miss game now. The Mustard Gate. I remember that game. That was a very close game. Gate.
I was watching that game with Matt. That was something.
It was.
I was at that game.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you were telling me about your.
Did you get a head injury? Were you okay? Were you?
No, no. It was just a golf ball, but no, I didn't throw anything. And it did seem it was mostly just kind of students from the student section, not entirely, but that
if
was.
If you had thrown anything from your section, I think it probably would have killed someone from that high up, because I remember you had you sent me pictures where you were at. So
I was a bit up there.
I mean, it was nice. It wasn't.
I've got a decent arm, but I'm not Joe Milton here, So.
But yeah, I think 7-6 is not. It's not bad for a rebuilding year. It's certainly not. The offensive attack is good, and I think now the program has something to build upon, and that's the biggest thing in a rebuilding year, right? Is changing the culture in the locker room and finding something to build a program on. Because as a coach coming in, it's difficult. It doesn't matter. It takes coaches years to do that. And I think he's kind of found his cornerstone. He's found his guys, and he's building around that. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. It's possible to go into Florida undefeated for sure. I think Florida will be the one to really test their season. It's either one where they go in, they win, and they start to really trend upward, or it's one where if they lose, that's where you find out where the players are and test their resolve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that game's at home, isn't it? Against Florida? Yeah, this is, yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's cool. I mean, that's an added advantage there.
Playing in the swamp is not easy.
Yeah.
Speaking of nothing else, we went 7-6, but at least the offense is fun to watch, and so we haven't had that in a while either. So yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Wes.
No, you're fine. No doubt. Speaking of teams that have something to build upon, we talk about South Carolina Gamecocks. Last year went 7-6 overall, 3-5 in the conference. Before that, they went a combined 6-16 in the 2 years prior. So there's some optimism there, right? Add to that a blowout win against Florida and soundly beating North Carolina in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Expectations are up. Offense should be much better under Spencer Rattler. Look, he's not perfect, right? We understand that. But let's not forget that last year we were watching them be led by Luke Doty, who, is a decent quarterback. But then when he was not able to do so, we had Jason Brown, a transfer from FCS school St. Francis, and who has now since transferred to Virginia Tech. And let's not forget graduate assistant Zeb Noland. I mean, what a story, right? He was, going over the plays, writing, the X's and O's one week. Next week, he's, starting quarterback. But yeah, regardless, this should be a step up at that position. Receiving core should be solid with returning starters, Van, Joyner, and Bell, alongside with Oklahoma transfer tight end Austin Stogner and James Madison transfer Antwain Wells. O-line is experienced, but does need improvement. The defense was actually number one pass defense in the SEC. Will need to maintain that pressure if they want to improve their record. Also, a fun little bit of news. They just chose a new name for their live mascot, going with the General over Cock Commander.
Thank God.
I was just waiting. I was like, really? Is that really in the running? But hey, it's South Carolina, so you never know. Right. So, all right, Jesse, what do you think about South Carolina? Are you buying in to them being on the rise?
Yes, I was last year. We all know last year.
You get to live it, don't you?
Yeah, I live in the state. And I'm telling you, when I first moved here, you couldn't find a Carolina fan. You couldn't find one. Clemson everywhere. Carolina fan in hiding. They started to peek their heads up just a little bit last year. And now that we're going into a new season, they're around and they seem pleasant and happy and optimistic. It's good to see. Because I'm tired of seeing Clemson people. I'm sorry. But I think, like I was talking about with Tennessee, the thing that had to happen at South Carolina was a locker room change. It was a mentality change in that locker room. And he did it. I mean, I was saying it last year. I was like, it's happening. I really think he did it when they beat Auburn. Life-changing for me. Yeah. And it was great. But seriously, he's building a program there. He got a very big name in Spencer Rattler to transfer, which again, I'm not necessarily sold on him, but that's a big transfer for them to get. And someone that previously, I don't think they would have gotten. Now, are they going to beat Georgia? No. Are they going to beat Texas A&M or Clemson? Probably not, but they're good enough where they might be able to upset one of them. And I think the program's on the rise. It's something where like the South Carolina Clemson game might actually be a game this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be, so unfortunately, I made the call that it would be a game last year and it was not. So that didn't work out for me for the pick'em last year. Grant, what are your thoughts on South Carolina?
Yeah, I totally agree with Jesse. I think South Carolina's on the rise. I really like Shane Beamer. I think getting Spencer Rattler was absolutely huge. Things that I've read are that Rattler, he had a lot of growing up to do, a lot of maturing to do, especially on the sidelines in the locker room. But, Beamer can kind of mentor him there. And Rattler was a very highly regarded quarterback coming out of high school. So, I think he might be the missing piece that they kind of need. I do think that they're going to be better this year. Like I said, not significantly. Now, Jesse, you said, they're not going to beat Georgia. I don't know. I'm not sold that Georgia's going to walk all over South Carolina this year. I think Georgia does drop one, may or may not be South Carolina. We'll see. But
South Carolina
in any case,
before.
I think South Carolina's looking at about it. Exactly. It has. And so, but yeah, I think South Carolina's looking at about another 7-5 season. Maybe with a bowl win, get 8. But I think the product on the field is going to look better than when they started last year. They worry me as far as being a Tennessee fan on the schedule.
Yeah, we'll see. They are one of those kind of wild card, especially how they've looked recently. I think I agree. I think that they have everything to be optimistic about this year. And
I don't think the South Carolina fans are going to boo Spencer Rattler from the stadium when he takes the field. So that'll be an embarrassing for him. That hurt.
Yeah,
that was rough.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, these are kids. Regardless of, I know they're highly hyped. And now they can get paid millions of dollars, but still, at the end of the day, it's
they're
kids.
babies.
Yeah.
And that,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's true too. Talking about Spencer Rattler needing to mature a bit, whatnot. Last year he's what, 19 years old, so not knocking 19-year-olds, but when you have, all this cloud and all these fans, everybody just looking at you to be the savior. And, if you underwhelm a little bit, college football fans, we're rabid, we are animals. And yes, if that doesn't fly, hey kids, sorry, so I think South Carolina's going to embrace him with a whole nother light and, give him that opportunity to grow.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. All right, let's talk about Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin entering his 3rd season as Ole Miss head coach. Last year, they went 10-3 overall, 6-2 in the SEC. Obviously, Matt Corral is gone. And though I was pretty impressed, honestly, with Luke Altmaier's performance in being thrown in to that bowl game. It's not a foregone conclusion he'll be the starter. Jackson Dart didn't transfer to Ole Miss from USC for no reason. I think that it may be more likely that he gets a starting job, but Lane's playing things close to the vest right now. He's not going to give anything away just yet. Running backs essentially starting over with transfers Zach Evans from TCU and Ulysses Bentley from SMU. By the way, Lane Kiffin is like the transfer portal king. He's like got people from everywhere. Receiving core also benefited from the transfer portal. Likely be an almost all new look with Jordan Watkins from Louisville, Malik Heath from Mississippi State, Jalen Robinson from UCF, and Michael Trigg from USC. All right, last year's Ole Miss defense was the best since 2014, but the bad news is that was still 97th overall in the nation. But hey, baby steps, right? They'll certainly have to improve. Key transfer on defense, likely linebacker Troy Brown Sr., who they hope will keep the defense anchored. All right. Grant, I know as a Tennessee fan, you have feelings about Lane Kiffin, maybe bad, maybe good, maybe what could have been with Lane. I don't know. But what are your thoughts on Ole Miss?
Well, once again, being at that game last year and just watching Lane Kiffin troll from the sideline and repeatedly fake injuries over and over, going into that game, I didn't really mind Lane Kiffin. Yeah, I wasn't, there's a lot of Tennessee fans that are still bitter and jaded about him departing in the night, but I'm past that, I'm grown up now. And so I've forgiven Lane. I decided, hey, he's all right. He's not that bad. And then last year happened. And so now, no, I can't stand Lane Kiffin, but the fact remains is he is a good coach. He's doing a good job at Ole Miss. And like you said, he's all over that transfer portal. He got some really key pieces in the offseason. To me, kind of like you said, Jackson Dart didn't transfer for nothing. I think that's going to be your starter. He is keeping it close to the vest. But at the end of the day, neither Jackson Dart nor Luke Altmaier are really mobile quarterbacks. And so that's kind of what he depended on Corral for last year, his legs. But that's why he got Zach Evans, right? Who was, I want to say it was a high 4-star, 5-star coming out of high school. He did decent at TCU. I want to say he had an injury problem. I can't remember, but I think he got some really good pieces to keep the offense going. And, but like you kind of pointed out, their defense was, even though it was better, it was still pretty bad. And that definitely needs to improve this year. I do think Ole Miss is going to have a really strong season. I mean, even looking at their schedule, they don't really have any stiff out of conference games. The West, actually, for the first time in a long time, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but for the first time in a long time, it's not completely stacked top to bottom. There are some winnable games in the West there. And then they draw Kentucky and Vanderbilt in the East. So I do think they're looking at another, 9+ win season. But yeah, I mean, now as much as I would like Lane Kiffin to choke against Troy and Georgia Tech and everybody else, but I'll save my golf balls for later.
Yeah. Jesse, I know you also have feelings for Lane Kiffin as his history with Alabama has gone. So what are your thoughts on Ole Miss?
Oh, Lane. If I can say one thing about Lane Kiffin, it is that the state of college football right now with transfer portal madness and all of this NIL stuff, there is no coach better suited to all of that madness than Lane Kiffin at all.
100%.
If you are a player that wants to benefit from the transfer portal and you want to benefit from NIL, that's your coach right there. That's the guy that has no issues with it, loves it, is going to take advantage of it and troll everybody else. That's your guy. And some players are going to absolutely love that. And they are going to go, as we've seen in the transfer portal, they're going to go there. And that's fine. He does well. I mean, I think he does well with quarterbacks. He's a brilliant offensive mind. He was at Bama. He's always been as a coordinator, and he is, for the most part, as a head coach, if he can keep himself in check.
He's getting older. He's getting better about that. He's matured a little bit.
A little bit. As much as Lane Kiffin can mature. But they won 10 games.
I thought that too until last year.
I mean, I'm always going to think he's a troll. It is what it is, but he embraces it.
He knows what he's doing.
Oh, he does it on purpose.
Joey Freshwater. I mean,
absolutely.
That's it.
He does it and he loves it. But I think this year's craziness with all the introductions of, NIL and all that, it'll be interesting to see how his program develops and how his players do. Because as a coach that does encourage that and loves it and loves attention, it'll be interesting to see how he can get his players to focus on Saturdays. Because that's a lot going on. That's a lot of ego because a lot of money is fueling these guys. And he is also someone that has a large ego. And I just want to know who's going to keep all of the ego down there in check, who's assigned to that job. But it'll be an interesting season for them for sure.
It is a funny dynamic, isn't it? Because if you look at Lane, you just assume that there would be no discipline and that everybody would just be running amok down there, right? But somehow it works. I don't know why or how, but they love him, they respect him. And it
like
works.
A fraternity president. Like
I was going to say they're bros,
Yeah, they identify with him.
That's basically
this weird bond and camaraderie. But yeah, you're right. It works. And when he got asked on ESPN about the Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher stuff, he was like, I talked about popcorn with Nick Saban before, but I am grabbing my popcorn for this. Like he can be funny sometimes. I don't know. Give him that.
Sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't, but yeah. All right, let's move on to Missouri and the Missouri Tigers. Last year finished 6-7, 3-5 in the conference. Connor Bazelak, he has moved on to Indiana. So last year's number 2, Brady Cook, battled it out with Tyler Macon, 4-star recruit Sam Horn. And although they didn't get JT Daniels through the portal, they did get Jack Abraham from Mississippi State. So that battle ensued for the quarterback position, and Mizzou has announced that Brady Cook is QB1. The leading yardage receiver, Tosky Dove, is back, and let's expect to see 5-star recruit Luther Burden to get involved early and often. Defense was the second worst overall in the SEC, dead last against the run. I remember seeing them get run upon so bad last year. Transfer portal should help somewhat, adding players like Tyron Hopper from Florida, who at linebacker they expect to step in as the team's leading tackler. So, Jesse, Mizzou, Coach Drinkwitz, what are your thoughts?
This program has got to get better, and they've got to get better fast for Coach Drinky's job and for the players. In the East, let's just think about it. Florida potentially about to get better. Tennessee already getting better, dangerous on offense. South Carolina getting some momentum. Kentucky, kind of solid for Kentucky. Georgia just won a natty. Then there's Mizzou. Ever
Missouri.
Since 2014, when they lost the SEC championship to Alabama, just mediocre. That's the best thing you can say about them. Mediocre. And they're in the SEC, and you can't do that. And I know you got to play in the SEC. You're going to get losses. It happens. But it's bad, and you've been in a rut, and you got to get out of it. And if I were you, I'd be getting a new coach quickly. I'd be accepting resumes, put it on LinkedIn.
Grant, Mizzou has been mediocre for quite a while, but could it be due to the fact that Coach Drinkwitz is still trying to win the Sun Belt title?
Possibly. I mean, that's the thing about Missouri. I mean, they've got to win the games that they're supposed to win, especially like the out of conference games, looking at their schedule coming up, Louisiana Tech, Kansas State. I wouldn't say either one of those is a gimme for Missouri. And if you're going to compete in the SEC, you absolutely have to win those. And then moving into SEC play, you've got to win, the games like Vanderbilt, which, I want to say they even struggled with last year. I can't remember exactly the score, but Drinkwitz, he's got to make some changes. And like you said, there are some key additions on the transfer portal, but defensively, they were terrible. I remember any game I watched with them, teams just ran all over them. And so hopefully Hopper coming in from Florida, I would expect him to be the leading tackler because there weren't many of those last season.
Everybody's getting straight through that line, right?
And Bazelak wasn't that bad, and now he's gone. If you're Missouri, I'm gonna have to agree with Jesse here. If you don't at least win the games that you're supposed to win, not even necessarily hit 6 wins, because that's going to be tough with the schedule they have. But if they don't win at least the games they're supposed to win and make some of the other toss-ups a bit competitive, yeah, Drinkwitz has got to go, I think. They haven't really been relevant since Bell.
They have athletes there. They've had athletes there. It's like when they get there, they're good, and then they regress. I don't know how
it's like they're good as individuals, but they don't play well together as a team. Yeah, which is the coach's, fault.
Absolutely. He doesn't develop talent. We've said it for seasons. He does not develop talent. Go. He can get it. They can transfer in, and then somehow he makes them worse.
And he has to be a leader too, and have a good look about it. It was last year, right, where they went up to Boston College. It was Boston College last year, right, where he was complaining about the fact that they even had to go up there, and I don't even know why we're playing this team, and blah blah blah. And then they turn around and lose to him. Not a good look.
No.
So it's definitely something that has been a struggle there, and yes, they do have to get better. So anyway,
time too.
Yeah,
to kind of rub salt in the wound.
Right. Let's go to Mississippi State. The Bulldogs. Mike Leach entering his third year as well as head coach. You guys remember the excitement when Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin both got hired, and we were like, the Egg Bowl just got awesome.
SEC media days.
Yeah,
we talked about that a lot awesome. At work.
Exactly. Last year, they went 7-6 overall, 4-4 in the conference. The air raid offense will be back. So will quarterback Will Rogers. But I think the hope is for that offense to kind of begin its next step with more big plays. I know they've done a lot of kind of dink and dunk and throwing the ball like 70 times a game with stuff like that. But I think they're wanting more big plays out of that offense. Running backs like leading rusher Dylan Johnson and Jaquavius Marks. Obviously, they're not going to run the ball a ton, but they'll be available out of the backfield to catch passes there as well. And some designed runs. Defense was fairly solid last year. Most of those guys are returning, so expect more of the same. I do expect the defense to continue its solid play, if not slightly better, with a few veterans and incoming transfer portal players. All right, Grant, what are your thoughts on Mike Leach in his third year as head coach?
Yeah, so I think Mississippi State's going to be a very dangerous team this year. Looking at Leach historically at the other schools, the other stops he was at, Texas Tech showed a lot of improvement in his third year. And then Washington State was actually year 4. But regardless, it takes time to kind of implement that sort of offense, that air raid, and to kind of get it rolling really well for them. But I mean, Mississippi State returns 18 starters on a team that was 8 points across 3 losses from being a 10-win team last year. So I think they definitely have the players there to win some big games. Going back, Jesse, to that one loss for Georgia, I think it's going to be South Carolina or Mississippi State. And the thing with Leach, though, you never know what to expect with him. He might come out in game 1 against Memphis and beat them by 50, or he might come out and lay an egg and lose by 5. You never know with Leach. Kind of, once again, going back to Leach and his track record, game 1s for him have not always been super great. So, but I still think Mississippi State, I think they're going to be a dangerous team. I think they're pretty much going to win the games they shouldn't win and lose the ones they shouldn't lose. So that's pretty much how that's going to go. But I do think they'll be a bowl eligible team at the end of the season.
All right. Jesse, what are your thoughts?
Oh, our sweet baby angel, Mike Leach.
Sweet baby.
It'll be interesting. I think they will be potentially dangerous because, again, it's another year where he's got his own recruiting class. He's got a veteran recruiting class now that's starting to lead. They've started to buy into the air raid offense. The kids that he's recruited have come there likely for that. They know what to expect. It's not like his first year. And, hopefully these kids also understand who Mike Leach is and how he coaches and just who he is as a human, and can get along with him in the locker room. So if they can still complete, 69 out of 73 passes this year, I think it's going to be really interesting. However, looking at their schedule, yes, they play LSU early and then they have Bowling Green, but after that, it's a marathon. It's A&M, Arkansas, Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia. That is not an easy run at all. And they are playing at Kentucky and at Alabama and Bryant Denny. So it's going to be a tough run for them. That is really going to show the strength of that team and how they can, buy into that offense and how their defense is, because again, you can complete 69 of 73 passes, but your defense has got to hold up. And that right there is going to test your defense.
Right. And let's not forget how painful that implementation of his team was. I don't know if y'all remember how many transfers there were, how many people just, weren't happy, who didn't mesh well with his new style. And that was,
he's a weird guy, and it's a weird, different offense.
He's different.
Yeah. And definitely has to recruit to that. And it's a different breed. But when he can get it rolling, we have seen it work in the past.
Yeah, it's hard for kids. I feel bad for them. You go to a school, you've committed to a coach, and then it's completely out of your control. They're gone. Someone else is in. It's their way or the highway. And then you just have to adapt, whether that's what you're skilled to do or not. That's tough. I don't blame the kids for leaving necessarily.
The only bigger change I could think from, was it Dan Moorhead to Mike Leach, would probably be Coach O to Brian Kelly, which brings us to LSU. First year head coach Brian Kelly, first year of LSU, of course, spent a lot of time at Notre Dame. Last year, LSU went 6-7 overall, 3-5 in the SEC. A lot has been made of Brian Kelly's start at LSU, from dancing in videos of potential recruits to saying things like "me and my family." One thing that might make people forget those things is winning, though. I do think that it is championship or bust for Brian Kelly. Not this year, of course, that's unrealistic, but soon, because LSU fans, they're spoiled, right? Last three head coaches have all won natties, and the fan base is going to expect more of the same. He brings one of his old assistant coaches, Mike Denbrock, who was OC for Cincinnati last year, to be LSU's OC. As for the quarterback battle, 6-year senior Miles Brennan, who decided to stay instead of transferring, with the competition leaning towards Arizona State transfer Jaden Daniels or the redshirt freshman Garrett Nussmeier. Miles Brennan has said, "I'm out. I'm not going to play football anymore." He's going to step away from football, won't play for LSU this season. So just what a weird situation.
Okay.
Yeah. So wide receiver Keyshawn Boutte, who I've been waiting to say his last name, who is coming off an ankle injury, likely going to live up to that superstar hype if he can stay healthy, of course. On defense, Kelly brought in Kansas City Chiefs linebacker coach Matt House, and the transfer portal was immediately his friend, bringing in tons of players for the defensive backs, while the front six brings back some veterans. Consensus is they'll need linebackers to step up so the backfield plays aren't made by the line, or at least that's kind of what they've been saying. The insiders have been saying. So, Jesse, LSU, what are your thoughts?
Brian Kelly. The last time I saw Brian Kelly, or paid attention to him really, was I was covering the Music City Bowl against Notre Dame and LSU, but it was Les Miles and Brian Kelly. So it's a very different program now. And Brian Kelly certainly did not have a Southern accent then. I'll tell you that. He spoke very well and very clearly.
Yeah.
I am so interested in this hire. I did not see this hire coming when it was announced. I did not see him fitting in Baton Rouge. I am so interested to see how the players that played under Coach Ed Ogeron are going to play under Brian Kelly, because they are vastly different people and they have different coaching styles. It's going to be fascinating. And there are going to be very high expectations. Brian Kelly has had, teams in the national championship. Didn't win, but has had him in there. He comes from a program that is historic that also has pretty big expectations. So the expectations themselves should not be new to him, but what he does with the talent and what he does with this caliber of competition week after week, not just when they get to a bowl game, is going to be very interesting, because we've said it all along, and I'll say it again, and I don't care that he's not at Notre Dame. Notre Dame sucks, and they are only in rankings because people watch Rudy and they drink the Kool-Aid and they like the shiny helmets. They have nothing to back it up with. So we'll see what he does with a program that does have some talent and actually has to play a schedule.
Right. I do think he's a good coach, which makes it even more interesting now that he actually has a decent team to play or to
their
coach.
SEC run, they play Miss State early. Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, Ole Miss, Alabama, Arkansas, one after the other.
Mm-hmm.
Not easy.
Grant, your thoughts on Coach Brian Kelly at LSU?
Yeah, so Brian Kelly, I think he is a good coach, not a great coach. I agree with Jesse. I did not see that coming when he got hired. I don't think it's a very good cultural fit with Brian Kelly at LSU. And so I'm just curious kind of to see, going from Les Miles to Ed Orgeron to Brian Kelly, how these players are going to respond to that. Like Jesse said, I mean, there's a lot of talent on that team. LSU largely just kind of recruits for itself. And like you said, the last three coaches all have national championships. So LSU is going to want some hardware here in the next probably 3 or 4 years. And if that doesn't happen, I don't think it's going to stick. But yeah, Kelly, I mean, it's a whole nother ball game for him now. He's 4-11 against top 10 teams when he was at Notre Dame. So it might be Notre Dame and Cincinnati, but in any case, he's going to be playing top 10, top 20 teams kind of week in, week out in the SEC. I don't see him necessarily surviving for too long at LSU unless he can recruit really well and the players can buy off on what he's selling. But again, I'm just not sold on the culture fit there, so I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know what he's selling. That's the question. Is he got into Baton Rouge and all of a sudden it's who is this human? So I don't know what he's selling. It'll be interesting to see.
Twerking and sweet tea.
Apparently so.
I want to see a recruiting visit. I want to see if he puts on the accent there, if it's a different accent every time. What is that like?
What the kid's accent is.
Right. He's just trying to
mirror. He tells him practice is going to be a grind. I mean, what are they thinking?
He's just trying to mirror whatever accent the kid has. He sits there and listens for a little bit. And he's like, I can do that one. So,
hopefully he doesn't get an Australian kid.
Right. Didn't see that coming.
You speak Swahili?
I didn't practice that one. Hold on.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Kentucky. Mark Stoops in his 10th year at Kentucky. Look at Mark. Last year they went 10-3 overall, 5-3 in the conference, 10 wins. Look at that. Last year's OC, Liam Cohen, now OC for the Los Angeles Rams. He's replaced by Rich Scangarello, who was previously the quarterback's coach for the 49ers. O-line lost a lot of players to the draft. Whoever's blocking is going to be doing so for one of the best running backs in the country, in Chris Rodriguez, who last year ran for nearly 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns. Cavazier Smoke, which is just still the coolest name.
Never going to get old.
He'll also be a factor in the run game. Will Levis, the eating adventures and all. The former Penn State transfer seems to have found a solid home at Kentucky. I mean, he can eat bananas with the peel, and they're cool with it. Wasn't he also the one who put mayo in his
mayonnaise
coffee?
in his coffee?
Yeah, there you go.
And I saw a video of it. Do you know how bad mayonnaise separates?
Oh yeah, it curdles.
Gives it texture.
That's right. He threw for 2,800 yards, 24 touchdowns last year. So apparently there was something working in that brew there. Kentucky quarterback hasn't done that since 2010, and I think we all remember who that was. Matt Hartline. Anyway, at wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson, now in the NFL. Josh Ali is graduated, and so they'll look to veteran DeMarcus Harris, as well as transfers Tavion Robinson from Virginia Tech and Javon Baker from Alabama. like the offense, the defense has had a few players move on, but they're talented players waiting in the wings, just need a little time probably. So Grant, let's start with you this time. I know you have a special relationship with Kentucky as well, with being a Tennessee fan. What are your thoughts on Kentucky?
No, Kentucky, it's weird. That's my thoughts on it. Kentucky, it's just weird seeing them at 10 wins and, being competitive in the SEC East. I mean, the SEC as a whole. And I think they're going to have another pretty good season. I can't really say that they're going to be like, Tennessee or South Carolina that's kind of on the rise, because I think 10 wins for Kentucky is about as the most they're going to get. But I mean, that's something to be happy about, and I mean, I think that it's definitely attainable again. I don't think that they're going to hit 10 this year, but looking at last year, whether it be offensive efficiency or defensive efficiency, anything, I mean, they didn't rank in the bottom half in pretty much anything. I mean, so they're a pretty well-rounded team. Mark Stoops has done an incredible job there. I just keep thinking that every season he's going to go somewhere else, and he just keeps staying at Kentucky. And so every year, that game on the schedule, it just kind of looms. But fortunately, as a Tennessee fan, we tend to kind of own Kentucky. So hopefully we continue to do that this year. But yeah, looking at their schedule, I mean, they're going to be a tough out for any team, but I definitely see them winning, 8 or 9 games this year.
Did you guys see where Mark Stoops, and the basketball coach for Kentucky got into a little Twitter feud?
No.
Where basically they're competing. They're competing for funds for facilities, is what it amounts to.
Oh wait, and he said that, was it like calling Kentucky a basketball school?
Yeah, he said, let's not forget. I forget what the words, because it's been a while since I've seen it. But basically, the basketball coaches, let's not forget Kentucky is a basketball school, and Mark Stoops is like, hello, we've actually won more than the basketball team has won in recent years. So that was just kind of, it was unexpected too, that he kind of clapped back at that tweet, and everybody was like, whoa, wait, what is happening? Jesse, what do you, right. Yeah. Jesse, what are your thoughts on Kentucky?
I'm still amazed. I mean, last season we kept talking about it. We're like, they might be legit. They kept winning. It was wild to see. And Levis at first, I wasn't necessarily sold on. And then it was like, the more he played, the better they did. Was it against Florida where they almost burned Lexington to the ground at one point? So yeah, Kentucky needs to keep this momentum going, is the thing. Is they are getting better. They are becoming relevant in the SEC, and not just in the East, but overall, like we mentioned. So I'm interested to see if they can keep this up, knowing that they've lost some people, knowing that they need to start to plug and play in that depth chart. So we'll see what they do here. They could do fairly well. They play Miami of Ohio. That's going to be easy. Youngstown State, Northern Illinois. Now getting into their SEC schedule, playing against Ole Miss, they're going to have to go into Ole Miss, but that should be a game. South Carolina, knowing that they're trending upwards too, interested in that. Same with Mississippi State, same with Tennessee. It's going to be very interesting. And then they go to Missouri. I think they can beat Missouri. Vanderbilt, obviously. They could give Georgia some trouble. It just depends. Grant mentioned there's going to be that one game. It could be Kentucky. We'll see. And then I think they can beat Louisville. So I think there's a good shot for them to continue being a contender in the SEC East.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, it seems like we've had this conversation about Kentucky consistently
every year.
About, wow, they just kind of keep doing pretty good. Better than expected, it's just kind of funny. And it's with different personnel too. So I think Stoops is a good, I think it's an example of somebody who is a good coach, who's doing well with what he's been given.
Right where you want to be, low expectations,
right,
exceeding them, and then just not getting fired.
Exactly. Yeah. And getting the people in emergency times when you need to get them out of the transfer portal.
When you put a wide receiver at quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. That we've seen that. Yeah, it's wild times for sure. All right, let's move on to Georgia. Jesse, I know the last time we talked about Georgia, You were in a different place, but you're better
Oh,
now.
no, I'm still in that place.
Oh, okay.
I'm still mad. I'm mad.
Oh, gotcha. All right. Well, anyway, all right. Well, let's just talk about it then. Last year, Dogs went 14-1 overall, 8-0 in conference play, won the national championship. Kirby Smart enters his 7th year at Georgia after recently getting a 10-year contract extension worth around $112 million. Stetson Bennett, who still doesn't get respect in some circles, including many that include Georgia fans, figures to be a starter at quarterback. And I think it's basically his job to lose. Carson Beck and Brock Vandegrift will battle for that backup spot. Gunnar Stockton, also highly recruited, will be in the mix. Wide receivers should be good. Vlad McConkey and Adonai Mitchell, AD, who combined for 60 catches last year, will be back. Tight end position is just really at a whole different level. That room is something else with Brock Bowers, Eric Gilbert, who should be all set this year, and Darnell Washington. Could all three of them be NFL prospects. And like the thought of a combo of any of them on the field at the same time has to really help Stetson Bennett out and just his thought process there. Zamir White and James Cook are gone, but Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton should be able to continue that production on the ground. O-line lost a few starters, but should be pretty solid still. Defense, obviously. Defense was one of the biggest stories last year, one of the biggest positives last year. Lost a ton of starters to the draft, as well as our defensive coordinator, Dan Lanning. Will Muschamp steps in as co-coordinator with Glenn Schumann. But like I said before, as long as that defense is run by Kirby, which, I mean, it is at the end of the day, I'm not really worried about it. I think it'll continue. The schemes will continue. Muschamp should do a good job running it as well. Jalen Carter, I mean, let's not forget, he's one of the best defensive linemen in the country. He just happened to be playing behind Jordan Davis, right? So we didn't hear him as much. I think you'll hear more of his name this year, even though we did hear a decent amount last year as well. Nolan Smith continued to be a solid linebacker. And secondary, Christopher Smith is back, along with Tyke Smith and corner Keely Ringo, who did have that pick 6 to put the national championship away at the end there. Look, I think we're still going to be good. How good remains to be seen. I'm not being unrealistic here. I don't think that it's, oh yeah, repeat, or whatever. If the defense takes a step back, as many expect, just because it was historically good last year, it'll be interesting to see how that pressure on the offense will affect them and their ability to produce if they're able to. Most games last year, offense had a luxury of dominant defense. We'll see how that relationship works this year. So I don't know. That's pretty much all I got from a Georgia fan's perspective. Jesse, what do you think?
It's always hard, I think, coming off of a national championship. Expectations are very high, regardless of how many people you've lost to the draft, how many, coaching personnel turnovers you've had because they've been successful and they go other places. There's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of expectations, and Georgia has not had that pressure or expectation in a while. And I'm not trying to throw shade. That's just the truth. And you did lose a lot of people to the NFL. You have a little bit of coaching turnover. Defense obviously is something that is not going to mirror last year exactly. So I will be watching to see how it goes. And the thing is too, is everybody has the number of the team that won the national championship. They all want to beat them. And the pressure is also on the coaches as well. Look at Ed Ogeron. You come from winning a national championship in a season that was historic, that as much as it makes me want to puke because I hated it, he gone. He's gone. So yeah, there is, obviously Kirby has a contract extension, but again, there's so much pressure there, and the fans have even more expectations than they did before. So as players, it's a lot to handle. And we'll have to see how the Georgia players handle that. We'll have to see if Stetson Bennett really is that guy, if he can carry them throughout an entire season and be consistent again. I am going to hold my Alabama fan self and tongue and not rehash the national championship and not say all the things I want to say about the people who are out and could have been in the game and might have changed it. So it doesn't matter. But Georgia fans, just remember, you got a natty and be happy. and remember that repeats are very hard to do, and that there is a lot of turnover after a national championship. So just remember that, and don't eat your players alive every week.
Yeah. There was only one SEC short that almost brought me to tears last year, and it was the one after the Natty. It was where Hope was leaving Georgia, and the Georgia fan was like, "Why are you leaving me?" She's like, "But you don't need me anymore." And it's like, this year you thought you could win. Next year you'll know you can win.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I mean, there's some truth to that. You have to do it, and then you realize, oh, I can do this, right?
And you have to, like, Alabama fans do it all the time. It's awful where we either win a natty, win a bowl game, and then the next season, the moment an interception is thrown, we're like, oh my God.
Season's down the drain.
This is a problem. This is a problem.
Fire Saban. He's
like,
getting old.
Everybody breathe. It's okay.
Right.
We won last year. Now it's a rebuilding year. We're okay. Right. Georgia, you're okay. I'm going to tell you at the start of the season, you're okay.
I appreciated what Kirby said at Media Days, where people were talking about how they were asking him, how do you fight apathy amongst the team or complacency amongst the team? And he's like, these guys haven't done anything. The guys who won, that was last year's team. This year's team hasn't done anything. So we just try to keep that mentality moving forward. And, you're always chasing it. Right. Grant, what are your thoughts on Georgia for this year?
Yeah, I think Jesse hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of pressure on Georgia, on the players. A lot of them are going to be, new starters. You guys lost a ton. I think Georgia's still going to be very good. Hate to say that. Kirby's just been recruiting lights out as well as anybody. I don't think they're going to repeat. And kind of going back to the pressure aspect, that's kind of why I've mentioned it a couple times during this episode that, they may drop a game, like I said, either South Carolina or Mississippi State. Both of those are away games. But again, I still think Georgia's going to be an extremely talented team. And I think a loss might be what they need to kind of rebound and say, hey, we've been there, we can do this, but we can't get sloppy. We can't
needed in the SEC championship last year.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's probably, honestly, what you needed to fuel yourselves through the playoffs. But, I think Stetson Bennett is extremely underrated. I think he's a very good quarterback. I'm not sure why he gets so much flack. Maybe just because of intangibles or things like that. But as soon as he throws his first interception, yes, Georgia fans are going to be calling for Gunnar Stockton or whoever. They're going to say, man, get Stetson out. What's he still doing there? But no, in any case, I think Georgia's going to be very good. I think they're going to kind of keep the momentum going from last year. And again, a loss could just kind of humble them, bring them back down to earth. But they've got the talent, the depth, to hang with anybody in the nation. And so really, like I said, if they take one loss, or even if they go undefeated, run the table, they are going to have to play a much different game in the SEC championship game. I know we're a little bit ahead of ourselves on that, but I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion. They are the heavy favorite to win the East, but yeah, with that defense not going to be able to carry the team as much this year, you are going to have that offense step up some. So can they do that? I think so. Yeah. Just with their depth and their talent. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully all this praise isn't going to, give them bad juju or whatever. So,
I'm definitely trying to give them bad juju. Right
I know what you're doing.
Two of the three people on this call are wishing only bad juju.
I know. So I know nobody knows this better than
bad juju for both of y'all.
Yeah, that's true. I know. I'm on a call with two of the teams I hate most.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Wow. It's just, it's a big circle.
Just, I want you to know that you are my favorite. Okay. Person to hate on the show. So.
Well, there you go. What a compliment, right? So,
yeah.
All right. Speaking of hating teams that I think we all can agree on, yes. Florida Gators, first year head coach, Billy Napier. And that's I know we may possibly have Florida fans listening to this show. It's all in good love and good banter. First year Florida head coach, obviously, Billy Napier. Last year, Florida went 7-6 or 6-7 overall, 2-6 in the conference. Emory Jones is at Arizona State now. So it is now the Anthony Richardson show. Receiver positions have kind of shuffled somewhat, but getting Ricky Pearsall from Arizona State should help running backs duty should be split between Wright, Lingard, Bowman, and Louisiana transfer Montrell Johnson. So listen out for those names this year in the running game. Defense likely have a lot of good but young players, especially as we get into the rotations. So we'll see. They'll need to get more pressure and turnovers this year than they did a year ago for sure. Because, I mean, and I was talking with a Florida fan tonight at my daughter's soccer practice, and he was talking about how, Florida was just for years known for that tough defense. Nobody would score in Florida. And now they've kind of, as many teams in college football have, migrated over to all offense. And that's kind of what they've been built around recently. So I think they're going to want a little bit more of a balance there. Grant, what are your thoughts on Florida and their chances this year?
Florida, that's a kind of a big question mark. I don't know what to expect with Florida. They Dan Mullen kind of left their roster depleted, and so Billy Napier is walking into, for lack of a better term, kind of a crap show. Anthony Richardson, he's good. He's serviceable at quarterback. Florida, I don't know. They've got a tough schedule. If they can get 6 wins, I think that'd be a good first year for Billy Napier. And I think if Florida gives him time, I think he's going to do a good job there. I think he's going to come in. He's got to kind of change the culture. He's got to implement new systems. He's got to restock that cupboard. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tough first year or two. But the thing, as a Tennessee fan, Florida can go 1-11, and that one win is going to be against us. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect with Florida. We're going to make Anthony Richardson look like a Heisman. I already know it, but not about us. Florida. Even saying Florida just kind of just gives me a sour
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Gosh. No, but I mean, that's just a huge question mark, really, for them and for LSU. I've got both of those teams. It's like the big unknowns. Like, I mean, how are they going to be? And that first week, September 3rd against Utah, that's going to be a really good test. I think Utah is an incredibly underrated team. I think they're going to be very good this year. Good in like a Pac-12 sense, but I think they, are a dark horse playoff contender. So if Florida can hold out and beat Utah, then number one, that doesn't give me a warm and fuzzy for September 24th when they go to Tennessee. But on top of that, I think, that kind of shows that Napier is going to be able to kind of fix that team a lot sooner rather than later. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they're going to struggle to get 6 wins this year. They've got a lot of rebuilding and recruiting to do.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, they have a test against Utah and then Kentucky. And like you said, this team already has a lot of question marks out of the gate. And then they have those 2 boom games, to test them right out of the gate. So, Jesse, what are your thoughts on Florida this year?
I think Grant's right. It's a huge question mark. Mullen left. There was so much strangeness in Florida for me, right? Like, it was just, who was quarterback? Who wasn't? What was happening? Why is he yelling at his assistant?
The whole thing is a fever dream.
Who was my wife talking to?
Yeah. What is his wife doing? No one knows what's happening. It's weird. It was weird. And I feel like the feeling in the locker room had to have been strange. I can't imagine being in that locker room. And I know he knew his time was up. I mean, so Coach Napier has quite the challenge or opportunity ahead of him. We've said it about several schools. He's got to change the culture in that locker room. He's got to just rebuild those guys, rebuild their confidence, implement a system, just a system. I don't care what it is. They probably don't either. And he's got to get Florida fans excited about football, because I don't think they were excited last season. And I don't think the players were either. I think they were feeling very defeated. And so he's got to reinvigorate that program. And you're right. The first 3 games are playing in the Swamp, which helps them. Swamp's very hard to play in. Utah, I think they can pull that one off. Kentucky's what I'm interested in. Yeah. That I think is really going to show the grit of Florida and give us sort of a state of the union of the Florida that we're going to have the rest of the season. After that, I think it's going to be a loss. And after that, if they can pull themselves together and they can start to rebuild and regroup, they may be able to pull out a decent season. But right now for me, there's just so many questions out Florida that I can't give a good prediction on where I think they are or where I think they're going to go.
Yeah. Coach Mullen, your recruiting class is really terrible. What do you have to say about that? Oh, we'll just worry about that during recruiting season. What? You know, if he didn't know before then, that had to have been the moment where
I feel
knew.
like mentally he was already checked out. I think that showed us that answer right there is he didn't care anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. He was just avoiding the question because he knew it was over. He was just like, whatever. Doesn't really matter.
I'm leaving.
We'll talk about that later.
One thing that's interesting, I just want to point out is I've talked to a lot of Florida fans that are underwhelmed with the Billy Napier hire, but pretty much non-Florida fans who I've spoken with, they all think that's a great hire. I mean, I personally, you know, as much as I hate Florida, I think Napier's a great hire for Florida. I mean, that's what I thought LSU was going to get. And again, I think if Florida gives him time to, like you said, implement a system, I think he can do a really good job at Florida. I mean, but it's
I
going
don't
to take
know
3 or 4
who
years.
Florida would have gotten.
That's a great point.
If
they didn't like that, who were they wanting?
Who else is there that they wanted? Who?
Lane Kiffin.
That's not going to happen.
No,
he is
Kyle
living.
Whittingham. I mean,
Yeah,
there were a lot of names.
life in Oxford. He ain't leaving. Like last year was those hires where you're like, I don't really know who's available right now. Like who's looking for a job. That's why I think the Billy Napier was very surprising. That's why Brian Kelly was surprising because nobody knew who was available. And there wasn't like one standout coach name that they're like, oh no, he's leaving. He's going to get hired there.
Yeah.
Right.
Fickle. I mean, somebody just.
Yeah.
But Nate, like I said, Napier, I thought it was a good hire.
What
every year I'm just going to say Hugh Freeze.
Hugh Freeze. Yeah.
Hugh Freeze.
Just will him.
He's going somewhere eventually.
Yeah.
He will.
That's it. All right, let's talk. Speaking of going somewhere, let's talk about the Auburn Tigers. Last year went 6-7, 3-5 in the conference. Now Auburn lost 5 straight games to close out the year, and most of them were kind of just they crumbled at the end. Right, they had the game and they let it get away, but they almost beat Alabama in a really crazy Iron Bowl. That was pretty nuts. Add to that a very racy Brian Harsin scandal, and things are just primed for mega drama on the Plains. I mean, they tried to get him out of there. The boosters, they tried to get him out, and somehow he's still there. I to this day I still don't know how he's still there. But poor Mike Bobo, who hadn't even finished unpacking yet, fired from the OC spot. In comes Eric Kiesau, who was previously the OC and quarterbacks coach at Boise State. Former LSU transfer TJ Finley was just named the starting quarterback, beating out Texas A&M transfer Zach Calzada and Oregon transfer Robbie Ashford. Pretty much the whole receiving core is back. They should be solid. Tank Bigsby is back, and honestly, that's all you need to know about the running game with a name like Tank. Derek Mason left as defensive coordinator after rumors that he and Harsin didn't get along, and Jeff Schmedding has been promoted to the defensive coordinator. I love that. I'm going to say it Schmedding every time. Front 4 should be solid on defense, but they're replacing a lot in the linebackers and secondary, so it might take a little bit for them to catch up there. In my opinion, Auburn is going to have to get, like we talk about, better about closing out games. If they get that lead at the end, they just have to figure out how to close it out. I can't tell you how many they just had and let get away, or they're going to find themselves in the exact same position as last year. So Jesse, Auburn, what you got? What do you think? Pressure.
There is going to be pressure on that man.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone wants him there.
It doesn't seem like it.
I don't know. Someone, I guess, did because he's still there. But there's coordinator turnover, which for players is difficult. The Derek Mason thing. Derek Mason's a really great defensive mind. So that's interesting. But if you don't get along with the head coach, you might as well bounce out. They've got all of the quarterback transfers. I think there's going to be a little bit of quarterback carousel throughout the games. It may be game to game, but we'll see. Interested to see if Zach Calzada can beat out Finley, because against us is pretty good. But I think the big thing is it's like you said, Auburn has to finish games. Auburn didn't finish games. Auburn started games and they didn't finish them. And you stay for 4, play for 4. It's got to happen. And they've got a pretty tough schedule. Luckily, a lot of the tough ones are at home. And we all know weird things happen at Jordan-Hare, but they got to play at Georgia. Not going to be easy. They got to play at Ole Miss. Not going to be easy. They play in Starkville at Mississippi State. And they play in Bryant Denny Stadium. They're going to have some losses this year. And I'm interested to see just how thin and how short the leash on Harson's going to be, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of grace given there. 8-4 ain't going to fly.
Right. Grant, your thoughts on Auburn?
Yeah, so I agree with most of Jesse's points, but as far as this year is concerned, I think 8-4 would absolutely fly, given their schedule. I mean, it is daunting. They've got a brutal stretch, starting in October, pretty much till the end of the season. I think Bo Nix being gone now, I think that's kind of a blessing in disguise for Auburn. I think they just needed something different. Hopefully Finley or Calzada, one of those can be their guy. Auburn last year, they really struggled offensively, not only just to close games like you guys pointed out, but just to move the ball, really. I mean, defensively, they weren't bad. Like I said, they did have Derek Mason, which, kind of on a side note, that might be the missing piece that the Mike Gundy needs at Oklahoma State, a defensive coordinator, but that is where he settled up. But neither here nor there. Going back to Auburn, yeah, they've got to be able to move the ball more effectively. Again, changing that quarterback and kind of maybe going to a pass first type offense is going to really help them. But yeah, their schedule is just brutal, and I personally don't see 6 wins on the schedule. So I think that's going to be the end of the short Harsin era.
Yeah. Fun fact, talking about Bo Nix, do you know where he transferred to?
Oregon.
Yeah. So,
it is Oregon. Yeah.
So Georgia's going to get to see him in the.
I'm interested to see that. I want to see how he does there.
Yeah, is it going to be more of the same? Take the snap and immediately start scrambling, or what's going to go on there? So it'd be interesting to watch both him and Auburn this year, how that works out. All right, let's talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks. Sam Pittman enters his 3rd year as head coach. Last year they went 9-4 and 4-4 in the conference. Guys, Arkansas won 9 games last year. KJ,
good for them.
All right. KJ Jefferson, or as Sam Pittman would say, yes, sir. Matt does it way better. KJ Jefferson developed into a real star last year with them. Hopes are he'll continue that development. They did lose one of the best wide receivers in the league to the draft, Treylon Burks, but Jadon Hazelwood is transferring in from Oklahoma, and they have enough other personnel to be good in the end, I think, in that at that position. I expect that Sam Pittman coached team will continue to have a good offensive line and running game. That's just kind of his MO. Jefferson led the team in rushing last year, but Sanders and Johnson look to be a tough tandem at the running back position. Barry Odom, still the defensive coordinator, and honestly, I've been a fan of his ever since he was at Mizzou. I thought he did great there for the most part, especially defensively. Some of those Mizzou defenses, super tough, and just continues at Arkansas. Sounds like they're going to try to get as many defensive backs on the field at a time as they can, even going with a 4-2-6 alignment a lot of the time, which I can't wait to see that. If they're able to generate more pressure, you could see that squad, the defensive side of the ball, take it to the next level. So I can't remember who I started with last time. Grant.
First.
Huh?
Is it Grant's first?
Yeah, I was going to say.
First. Okay. Yeah. So Arkansas, man, I'll tell you, it's crazy that they won 9 games last year. I mean, Sam Pittman, he's done just an incredible job there. And yeah, I completely agree. Barry Odom, he's doing good job with the defense. They have gotten better each year that he's been there, but still statistically, they were still bottom third of the SEC last season in total defense. But I think that they're fixing that, right? That's kind of a work in progress thing. And like I said, they have trended upward every year. Arkansas is going to be a tough team to beat. KJ Jefferson, very good quarterback right there. I'd say he's top 3 in the SEC, hands down. So really, I think their season is going to kind of hinge on their first couple of games, right? So they've got Cincinnati, who should not be the same Cincinnati, with Desmond Ridder. But they still do have Luke Fickell. It's going to be a tough Cincinnati team, and then South Carolina. So if they can win both of those, I think that's going to give them the momentum to kind of roll into a really successful season. They've got, big back-to-back tests with A&M and Alabama. But overall, I mean, I think they're going to be another solid 8-9 win team. It looks like kind of from Sam Pittman's tenure there, or at least from last year, they win the games they should, and they fight hard in the ones they shouldn't. So I look to see more of that this year. And as long as they keep kind of trending in this direction and recruiting well, they should be all right for the foreseeable future. Kind of going back to the Treylon Burks things, like you said, they did get Jadon Hazelwood. And this is the first time that Sam Pittman said that they have had, what was his quote exactly? He said that they have the depth numbers that at wide receiver that they have not had in the last couple of years. So as far as wide receiver goes, Pittman is not concerned about the loss of Treylon Burks.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's got to be a good feeling. I mean, obviously you lose him, but to have depth, that's got to be nice. Jesse, what are your thoughts?
I think that Arkansas, the players, the fans, they've all bought in to Pittman, and that's huge. I think he has the support of the players and the fan base. They trust him. And I think KJ Jefferson, to me, last season was so gritty. He was the guy on the field that was putting his body out there. And I'm sure as a coach, you're like, don't do that. But he really did. I mean, he was not sliding very much. He was willing to do whatever it took to try to push his team forward. So I respected him. I'm interested to see how he has progressed in the offseason and coming into this season. I really, really enjoyed watching his grittiness. So this is going to be a good season for them. Again, they need to work on defense, but it's one thing at a time. They've started to get the offense moving. So defense is that natural thing to follow. And it's going to be a couple tough games. Alabama's going to be tough. Mississippi State could be tough if they don't have the defense to back it up. Texas A&M, absolutely. BYU could be a tough one, as well as Auburn, depending on how things go there.
Don't forget Liberty.
Yeah, Liberty.
No more Malik Willis.
Yeah.
But there's going to be some tough games, some tests for them to really see where their program is at within the SEC. Some tune-up games in there, as we all have. But I really enjoy watching, Sam Pittman coach, and I really enjoy watching his Razorbacks, as long as they're still not good enough to beat Bama.
Right. A lot
it's
of times
crazy. Everybody likes Sam Pittman. Sorry, Rob. I mean, nobody not likes Sam Pittman,
Right. Oh, absolutely. And, so it's funny. Usually a lot of times when a coach leaves a team, like he left Georgia, it's easy to be like, man, I kind of hope things don't work out for him. But honestly, so happy for the dude. He'd never had a head coaching job before. It seems to be working out. He's, like you said, he's a great dude, and just couldn't be happier for him. And I think that's the feeling, like you said, amongst a lot of people. So, all right, well, let's talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide, and Jesse is beyond ready. Last year, the Tide went 13-2, 7-1 in the conference. Honestly, I just be straight up honest. I think Bama is the team to beat. On paper, it looks to be that way. As long as you got Bryce Young, one of the best QBs in the game right now, and you got Will Anderson Jr. on the defensive side. As long as those two stay healthy, I think both sides of the ball are anchored. There's just too much talent overall. I think it's going to take either attrition, like as the season goes on, or one of their opponents is just going to have to play outside their minds to beat them, I think. And then, Saban complained about little old Bama struggling to keep up in the NIL game, which we all know was a calculated statement to get the boosters to open their wallets just a little bit when they're like, oh, Saban's right. We need to do something about that. Put out a little bit more from their wallets for the players. And then I'm not going to get into it yet, but we have some really, really fun stuff to talk about that happened in the offseason. But Jesse, first, let's hear from you. What are your expectations for your Crimson Tide?
Yeah. The first thing I want to say is obviously thoughts and prayers and all good vibes and will to Brian Robinson.
Yes.
For those that haven't heard, he was shot multiple times in an attempted robbery. And he was the victim. So for all of those, and I'm just going to say all those idiots who say that Alabama players steal something and why did he do that? He didn't steal anything. He was the victim of this. So let's read the whole article before we just buy into a headline. And remember that these are young people, these are people, and regardless of fandom, that's not okay. So I hope Brian Robinson gets better. He is in stable condition, so we're wishing him all the best across all fandoms. But as I said at the top, this is the revenge tour. Bad things happen for teams when Alabama gets so close. Nick Saban gets so close to something, and then he gets disappointed. He comes back with a vengeance, and I have no doubt that this season is going to be exactly that. He has never said this, at least out loud or anywhere I've heard, but I think that Nick Saban fully believes the game would have gone differently in Indy had Jamison Williams not been hurt and John Mechie been able to go. I truly believe that. I think Nick Saban believes that, and I think he is about to show that this year. We have a Heisman winning quarterback. So yes, there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that because there's a lot of expectations, but Bryce Young, if anything, was shown last season, he's got a cool head. And I'm also very confident in his backups. I know that redshirt freshman Milroe is very good. So I do feel pretty confident at that position. And experience, Bryce was very young last year and won a Heisman. And I think his decision-making skills will only get better and have only gotten better after going through last season and after going through a loss. Losses make you better. And so I am only expecting him to get better. And I'm only expecting that line to block better. And I'm interested to see how Gibbs, who's the transfer running back from Georgia Tech, does. He's apparently stellar, and I'm sorry if you're randomly an ACC listener that jumped on this podcast, it's different to play in the ACC than it is the SEC. So I really want to see how he transfers into that system and how good he is. Brian Robinson, of course, when he's well, he's going to be a stellar athlete out there. And it should just rip yards and chunks off that field. But Will Anderson coming back, of course, I think we're stacked at the linebacker position as well. It's going to be just a gauntlet every weekend. And it's very interesting. If you look back at last season, we had a defense that was probably just as good as our national championship 2019. And yet we still lost because, as we mentioned earlier, talking about other teams, we have gone from this very heavy defensive conference to now being in that heavy offensive conference. And we don't look at defenses as much. And our defense was very good. Georgia's defense was very good. So I hope we're able to bring that back. But I do know that we get angry and we like to prove ourselves. And we've shown before in previous teams that guys will come back when they feel like they have an unfinished job. And I think our guys feel like they didn't finish their job. So hopefully we're able to do it this season. We open with Utah State, so that should just be thrilling. I know everyone's looking forward to our game against Texas in week 2. Nobody's looking forward to, that early kickoff, but that's okay. And then we just pounded out with UL Monroe and Vanderbilt. So
it does kind of set up nicely to begin with, doesn't it?
It is. But then we get into the strength of the SEC schedule, and we have, Arkansas, which historically in the past, Arkansas has given us trouble before a lot of times. It hasn't been too much since like Mallet was quarterback, but
Oh gosh,
still,
the blast from the past.
I know, but still they used to give us quite a fit. A&M is going to be a fascinating game for just multiple
go ahead and circle
reasons. Thank God it's in Bryant Denny. Tennessee, always a crowd favorite. Mississippi State, LSU, Ole Miss. And then obviously we know Iron Bowl can go any way, any season. So roll Tide, y'all.
Grant, I know you're about to vomit right now, but what are your thoughts?
Well, honestly, this was the segment of the show that I was really not looking forward to. Just because I just hate Alabama. I do. Yeah. I'm sorry, Jess. You seem okay. But
I get it.
I mean, it's been like 13 years,
It has been. We didn't have iPhones when you guys beat us last, but that's okay. And I feel like it's so historic that we hate each other. We know that. I'm not surprised when Tennessee fans says they hate us.
Yeah, I mean, so on top of everything, the reason I wasn't looking forward to it is, yes, I mean, Alabama is going to be really good this year. I agree with Jesse. It does seem, Saban, whenever he kind of gets close and loses, it's ugly the next year. And some of the games that would be challenging, I think, for Alabama this year, like Texas A&M, because of what happened last year and because of the little offseason spat. I mean, it's going to be brutal. I'm looking at the schedule. I really feel like Tennessee, you said, I like how you had to say about that was, that's a fan favorite. I'm optimistic this year about the Tennessee game. Again, we got to get that monkey off of our backs eventually. But going back to Alabama Saban offseason, pretty much all the holes that you guys had, I mean, y'all filled really well. Jahmyr Gibbs, everything I'm reading is that guy's phenomenal. Offensive line, I think that's your big question mark. Can they give Bryce Young some more protection? But again, adding somebody like Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, that just adds another dangerous dimension to the backfield. And then, I mean, you picked up Jermaine Burton and then him, right there with Trayshawn Holden and
Trader.
Yeah, right. Kobe Prentice. I mean, everything I'm seeing, this guy, Kobe Prentice, is just phenomenal. He's better than every receiver you've ever had ever, So, I mean, we'll see. But, I mean, that's just kind of the same trend with Alabama year in, year out. It's like, oh, we've got this new running back and wide receiver, and they're all better than what you knew from last year, which was like the best thing ever, So it's just going to be another year of that. I fully anticipate Alabama to win the West, to go on to the national championship, probably win. I really think this year the only contender they might have would be like, maybe Georgia, Ohio State. That's about it. So yeah, they're going to be good. Saban, obviously, he does a good job every year of restocking, the cupboard wherever there's parts missing and whatnot. But I hate, that's why I wasn't looking forward to this, because yes, Alabama's going to be good. There, Jesse, you're going to be good. I'm hoping that Utah State upsets you, though. I really do.
Oh man, the only way that happens is if they get overlooked, and obviously that doesn't happen a ton with Saban.
I mean, I want to puke saying this, but like Texas A&M did it. The one team that I didn't want over anybody else to be the first Saban disciple to beat us. It happened. So
that was
like
a
the
weird
Band-Aid
week,
finally
though.
Got ripped off.
That was a weird week, though. And that was one of the few times where Saban bought in and actually allowed himself to talk some smack. Remember, because they were talking about, and I guess this was earlier. This was way before the game actually happened. But Jimbo was saying, somebody's going to beat him one day, or we're going to beat him one day. And Saban said, "Oh, is he talking about golf?" And it's almost like the bad juju just from that one comment came back.
It was like every witchcraft and spell that Auburn's written down, they just passed to Jimbo Fisher that week, because everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And I'm just like, what is happening?
Yeah. So speaking of which, are we ready? Are we ready to talk about this?
Yeah.
Because it has to be talked about. Because there's a lot of stuff out there that I don't think that the people have heard, because you get these little quick clips from ESPN, and yeah, they are bad, but they aren't quite as bad as the full story. So let's talk about, everybody, if you haven't, get your popcorn ready, whatever you need to just kind of hang out and listen to a really good spat here. But Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban, if you've been living under a rock, had an interesting back and forth through the media, which we'll listen to now. I have a few clips here, starting with Saban's comments at a 50-day countdown event for the World Games.
But I know the consequence is going to be difficult for the people who are spending tons of money to get players. And you've read about them. You know who they are. I mean, we were second in recruiting last year. A&M was first. A&M bought every player on their team, made a deal for name, image, and likeness. All right, we didn't buy one player. All right, but I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain that in the future because more and more people are doing it.
All right, that was on May the 18th. The day after, May 19th, Jimbo Fisher calls a press conference to fire back.
The narcissist in him doesn't allow those things to happen. And it's ridiculous, but when he's not on top, and the parity in college football he's been talking about, go talk to coaches who coach for him. You'll find out all the parity. Go dig into wherever he's been. You can find out anything. We built him up to be the czar of football. Go dig into his past, or anybody that's ever coached with him. You can find out anything you want to find out, what he does and how he does it. And it's despicable. And I know the guy, know him really well. It's the second time we've had to do this with grown men who don't get their way and want to pout, throw a fit, and act up. Just go ask all the people who work for him. You'll know exactly what he's about. I always said this. My dad always told me this. When people show you who they are, believe them. He's showing you who he is.
Have you had any contact with Nick since?
No. Oh, he's called.
You just didn't take the call?
Not going to. We're done.
And
He shows you who he is.
and then I just wanted to.
He's the greatest ever, huh?
And then I just wanted
When you
to
got
know-
all the advantages, it's easy. Listen, you coach with people like Bobby Bowden and learn how to do things. You coach with other people and learn how not to do things. There's a reason people don't go, I ain't went back and worked for him with opportunities.
Coach back behind the
Don't be
lights.
associated with it. And what's funny, in that talk, right before he said that about us, wasn't he soliciting funds from the crowd? It's amazing, wasn't it?
To the left, Rob.
When you walk on water, I guess, it don't matter. I'm not defending anybody. I'm just giving you the truth. Because I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide, and our program has nothing to hide. Be interesting if everybody could say that. Listen, I'm going to tell you one thing. You can call me anything you want to call me. You ain't calling me a cheat. I don't cheat and I don't lie. So I learned that when I was a kid. If you did, the old man slapped you side of the head. Maybe somebody should have slapped him.
And that one just builds and gets better as it goes
That
on.
one reporter has just one question that his editor needs him to get, and he's trying desperately to get it and breathing so hard to get it.
Oh, right. I was going to say props to whoever, I guess it was that guy, breathing so loudly during that recording. It's just trying their best.
But did you?
Well, hold on. Let's pause for a devil's advocate moment. Okay. Grant, would you like to role play with me?
Sure.
I never thought another man would ask me that, but sure.
I was waiting for. Let's
TV.
imagine that you are a coach for a respected institution. Let's say that I am also a football coach for another respected institution. Okay. All right. Coach Grant, you had the #1 recruiting class in college football this year, but with the new NIL stuff, you guys bought every single player on your team. Why would you do such a low down thing? Explain yourself.
Because it's allowed. We're allowed to do that. And so we did it. We have the money. And so we did it. And I'm building a powerhouse team. Thank you.
You know what? It could have been solved with that, right?
Yeah. Honesty is everything.
But no, Jimbo decided to call that conference. Okay, so that was May 19th.
I feel like when you call a conference, you're just giving validity to what's being said. Like if you have to yell that loud to defend yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
Quickly.
Is that what you wanted me to say? I'm trying to.
No, I honestly just wanted to.
Great job.
I was gonna say, I just wanted to hear what you thought. Honestly,
it's allowed. I did it.
There you go. And then so May 31st, so the Jimbo press conference was May the 19th. Saban on May 31st said this.
I didn't really say that anybody did anything wrong.
You said they bought their recruiting class.
I didn't say anybody did anything wrong, okay? And I've said everything I'm going to say about this. But, I think that,
I guess the point, and I should have never mentioned any individual institutions, I said that before, but, some kind of uniform name, image, and likeness, standard that supports some kind of equitable national competition, I think is really, really important in college athletics and college football.
So comments are becoming a little bit more responsible at this point.
Oh, PR got involved immediately.
Yeah.
The crisis management team at both institutions got called in early as hell.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, yeah. So that was May the 31st. And then, so Jimbo on June the 1st, after apparently having some dialogue with Saban, said this.
We spoke very in the beginning, and he's been what he accused us of. Both things. We said it's over with. We're done talking about it and what happens, and we're moving on to the future, what goes on, and try to fix the problems of what we have in college football. We're a lot more pressing needs than our arguments.
So the master of clarity, we spoke very in the beginning, and he's what he accused us of. It's Jimbo. You just never know what he's going to say.
He doesn't know what he's going to say. That's the problem.
No, but he said, I'm kind of the reporter's dream. Number one, I guess he does, he never knows what he's going to say. So it could be some crazy headlines, but then also he talks so fast. He gets in so much information in such a short period of time. So Grant, did you have any thoughts so far about the goings on?
Not really. I kind of followed it a little bit, and then I was like, this is dumb. I was like, why are they fighting about any of this? But it's going to make the things on the field a lot more interesting, especially like I said, given the results of last season, especially. I'm sure Jesse's looking forward to seeing a bloodbath there.
Yeah. Well, SEC Media Days in July is the last clip that I have kind of as a bookend on this. And Jimbo had some even more interesting comments.
Listen, we're great. We two competitive guys that go at it. Listen, we all learn from things we do in our business. You got two competitive guys on a topic that is very everywhere, as they say. There's no rules in this thing and where it goes, and each state has different laws and everything. And I have great respect for Nick and that's unfortunately our thing went public, and that's sometimes that happens in this world. Nothing's private anymore, is it? Anyway, but no, we have great respect for Nick, and we all learn from him. We all will learn. Like he said, he will learn. Hopefully I learn from things we do and say, and we move on from there. But have great respect for him and their program like always.
So I love the transition. At one point you have, he's a narcissist. He's a terrible, terrible dude. He's despicable. And then you have, oh yeah, we're good. Got great respect for Nick. One thing, this is the funniest thing to me. So he said, unfortunately ours went public. Nothing's private anymore, is it? Well, Jimbo, the reason that it's public is because you called a press conference to talk about it publicly. Like, yep. It's not a mystery, right? And
Saban said the whole time, whether you agree with him or not, he's consistent. He doesn't like NIL. Now, do our players have it? Yeah, they're getting paid for name, image, and likeness. They have brand sponsorships and all that stuff now. And I think he made a good point. He didn't say anybody did anything wrong. It's legal to do. And I think where Jimbo Fisher in this last clip was a little misguided is there are rules for it. He's like, there's no rules. Well, there's rules. There is rules. And we're going to continue to get an evolution of rules because this is new. There's going to be screw ups. There's going to be things that nobody thought of that you're going to have to think about and that are going to come out. And technology is constantly changing. Brand deals, advertisements, always changing. We're going to have to develop even more rules. And yes, different states have some variations on them. And it'll be interesting when the federal government comes out and actually has some, overarching rules, but there are NIL rules, Jimbo. So maybe just maybe read them or talk to a SID or something. But I think you have two kind of old school football coaches, one that just fully embraces NIL money and all that stuff. And that makes sense. He's in Texas. Look at his contract. That's his thing. And Nick Saban is not that way. Our players, like I said, they do have NIL and that is what it is, but he's not going to focus on that. And I think maybe the point he was trying to make in one of those clips is that, and we talked about it in our NIL episode, and no matter what people try to say, oh, NIL is going to benefit some players more than others, and people disagree that it won't, it will. It's going to benefit some institutions more than others. It's going to benefit certain sports more than others and players more than others. It doesn't matter. That's just the way it is. And the moment everybody just agrees to that and understands that that's the case, and stop trying to put like rose-colored glasses on and pretend that, the field hockey, women's field hockey in some super small Northeastern school is going to get the same sponsorship that the quarterback at Alabama is, it's just misguided. And
unless there's some booster that's just really passionate about women's field hockey.
Yeah. Like, the owners of Google are super big women's field hockey fans. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I think that's maybe what he was getting at, is there's going to be in programs, things are going to be not equal and not fair, and recruiting will get complicated. And I'm sure for a lot of old coaches, regardless of sport, they are probably very frustrated at the NIL thing, because it does complicate their jobs. It does complicate their ability to recruit. And it's going to add a lot of distraction to players. It's going to be convoluted. And as we get into it in these first couple of years, it's going to be even worse. So I get it. And we all know how I feel about Jimbo Fisher, and for him to say that he's not a despicable human and he's never lied or covered anything up. I'm always going to look and say Jameis Winston at FSU, and I'm never going to let it go.
Waiting for that.
And I will argue tooth and nail with someone on it. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I, for one, am circling that October 8th. I cannot wait to watch. I assume it'll be that 8:00 CBS slot. I hope it is, because the entire country is going to be wants to watch, especially after last year. So
if things go wrong in the way I don't want to go on October 8th, I'm just going to eat a shoe.
I'm going to eat a shoe. Wow. We have that on recording. Jesse will eat a shoe. And which one is the question? We'll have to figure out what kind.
I'll eat Will Anderson's cleat. I just don't even want to be here.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, that does it for our summaries for each team. We're gonna go ahead and get into a new segment called the Speed Round.
Speed Round.
That one was a lot of fun to make. Okay, so we're going to go through 3 different questions real quick, and basically you guys are going to just come up with whatever answers just off the top of the head. So let's start with the first one. Jesse, I'll start with you. Which brand new coach will fare the best, Billy Napier or Brian Kelly?
In an accent competition, Brian Kelly. Overall, I'm gonna say Billy Napier, because to me that culture fits more with him. And I just don't, I agree with what Grant said. I don't know the culture fit for Brian Kelly.
Okay. Grant? Billy Napier or Brian Kelly?
Okay, so I think short term, year one, I think Brian Kelly. I think long term, Billy Napier. Culture fit with Brian Kelly. I don't think it's going to work. Napier is going to do well over time. But so year one, kind of, I think both teams are looking at 6-6 thereabout. But I think the October 15th game of LSU and Florida is actually going to determine which one's going to get bowl eligibility. And that'll kind of answer that question.
Yeah, it's really, really difficult to say. If I had to just off the top, I'd probably say Billy Napier, but there's so many unknowns with him. I feel like Brian Kelly is more of a tried and true, but still you don't know how that, like you said, that culture fit's going to work out. So Matt did put his thoughts on here. He said that he thinks it's going to be Brian Kelly. He has the pedigree with big programs such as Notre Dame. He thinks Napier is Butch Jones version 2.0. So he thinks he's going to struggle. So, all right. So question number 2, Grant, let's start with you this time. Which transfer portal player will have the biggest impact for their team?
I'm going to say Jermaine Burton. Reason being is because with the addition of Jahmyr Gibbs, we talked about it earlier, Alabama's backfield is going to be really good. But Burton kind of fills some shoes that Jameson Williams, Mechie, we saw not having those in the national championship, how that hurt. And so bringing in Burton's good experience target that can create separation alongside, like I said, Kobe Prentice and Trayshawn Holden. I think that's going to be big for Alabama to kind of spread the options open for Bryce Young. And so, and Saban's repeatedly said that Jermaine Burton's got the best hands on the team. So that's my answer.
Jesse, transfer portal player, which one's going to have the biggest impact?
Well, I like Grant's answer a lot, but I'm going to go with Spencer Rattler. I think that he was a big name for South Carolina to get at that time and really shows their progress as a program. And they were hurting in the quarterback position. I think it's a mutually beneficial agreement, him coming from a place that seems like they hated him at the end, to a place that is willing and ready to welcome a quarterback that they can rally around. I think that's going to be a good situation there. And like we mentioned earlier, he's had some time to grow up. I think that Beamer's the coach there that can really help mold him and mentor him. So if he can do that, I think he's going to be a big player there.
Matt agrees. He thinks Spencer Rattler is going to make some noise down in Columbia, might be the piece that was missing to get SC over the top. I'm going to go a little bit different route, and I'm going to go with Jackson Dart. So, Kiffin's a big quarterback guy, and I see that going well. I don't know, for whatever reason, I just have a feeling that that's going to work out well, and that he'll impact Ole Miss down there. All right, so our final question, Jesse, let's start with you this time. Which team do you think is a dark horse in the SEC?
Oh gosh. Okay. Word vomit. It's coming out. It's the first team that came to my mind. So since the speed round, I'm just gonna say it. I think it's Kentucky.
Okay.
I think 10 games last season's a big deal for them. And I think it's something they're only going to build on. Will Levis has had a chance to get in the groove and start to settle in there. He's found his home there. And I think that they may be a real contender in the East.
Okay. Grant.
I'm going to go with Arkansas here. I think, like I said, KJ Jefferson's one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. Even though they lost Traylon Burks, Pittman's already said that they've got the depth at wide receiver, unlike they've had before. Defense should be better. Let's see, their two running backs, Sanders and Johnson. They're both 500-yard rushers from last season on top of KJ Jefferson. So they're back. So, I'm going to say dark horse is Arkansas.
Okay. Matt says he doesn't want to sound like a homer, but I legit think Tennessee is going to surprise some folks. Hooker's made some progress according to the rumor mill. Defense has gotten some reinforcement. I fully believe UT could sneak up on somebody. So that's what he has to say. I don't know if I just had to grab a team out of the sky. I probably would go with Arkansas too, just because I think that, I think they got a good thing going over there. We've seen, like we've talked about, KJ Jefferson has just continued to develop. He has grit, as you said, Jesse, and it's true. He really does. And as a good leader on that team. So I would, granted, they're in a tough division, and that's the problem, is being in the West. But I could see them upsetting some people. Maybe not Bama, but some people. All right. So that's all we got for that one. Let's talk about a couple of the listener feedback comments that we had.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
All right, so we talked about expectations. What do people expect to see on our Instagram? And Seth Barron says he expects to see chaos this year in SEC. So you might say more of the same in that regard. This is just chaos every year, it seems. Jody Hendricks says Mississippi State wins 9 games this year. And I thought that one was interesting. Did you guys have any thoughts on whether or not Mississippi State can make it to 9 wins?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
I was looking at their schedule, and it's going to be tough.
It's a loss to Georgia. It's a loss to Alabama. I would say probably to A&M, and I could even put a loss at Ole Miss or Kentucky in there. I just don't know. I'm not confident.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm going to go under 9 games as well. I don't think they can do that this year. I mean, I think they're rolling in the right direction, but just given that schedule, I don't think so. What do you think, Grant?
I mean, I could see them hitting. I'm high on Mississippi State. I think they're a lot better than people are thinking. I think they're gel a little bit more in Leach's third year. So I think 9 maybe with the bowl game. I'm looking at 8, looking at their schedule because, like I said, I mean they were just 8 points away from winning 10 games last season. So I mean, could they do it? Yes. Could they surprise some people? Yes. I know Jessie came out. She said Georgia, that's a loss. I'm not saying it's a loss. I'm just saying, but I'm not saying it's a win either. But in any case, I mean, yeah, I could see them getting. I could see them getting 8 as their ceiling. So we'll say 9 with the bowl game.
Okay, all right. And then finally, we have Janet Russell says, "I may be a little biased, but the Crimson Tide will win the SEC, no doubt." As I say, Jesse, I knew you'd say that. I can't argue with that, really. Like I said, I think if kind of talked about it at length earlier. I mean, they're going to be good. You said it too, Grant. I mean, it's on paper, they are going to be the dominant team. It looks to be anyway. So do you have anything else to add, Grant?
No, I mean, really, I think that both sides, the East and the West, I mean, Georgia and Alabama, I think going into the season are going to be your heavy favorites. But yeah, like Jesse kind of pointed out again, Saban's ticked off after last year, and Georgia's going to be good. Bama's going to be good, but Bama's going to be a different level of good, I think. So
yeah, agreed. All right, well, let's go ahead. We've talked about a lot of stuff, and now it's time to talk about the upcoming games.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, so actually, I did want to start off this segment. It's not a upcoming game, but there was one game that has happened already in the SEC, and that was Vanderbilt at Hawaii. That was last Saturday, August the 27th. And the reason some of you may have missed it was it happened at 10:30 in Hawaii, of course. So obviously Vanderbilt's played their opener already, but as far as the game goes, that Vandy rushing attack, my gosh, over 400 yards on the ground. The defense scored twice on fumble returns. Like it was a little bit of a slow start, and I was thinking, it's kind of more of the same. I don't really know what to think about Vandy. And then they just poured on the points. It was just insane. Mike Wright, like we mentioned before, a true dual threat, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. And get this, guys, with 63 points, Vanderbilt, as of the time of this recording, is the nation's top scoring offense in the country.
Hold on to it, Vandy. Make sure.
Right. It's the small victories, right?
But make shirts. And what a fun game to go play in Hawaii.
Right. I mean, just chilling in Hawaii, watching your team. I mean, that's kind of a win regardless, right?
That's awesome.
So, Grant, did you have any thoughts on that game?
No, we've kind of touched on Vandy before, but yeah, I'm just, like they've already have their win total from last season. They just need to carry this momentum into this weekend.
All right, Jess, did you have anything else on that one?
No.
All right, let's
have this.
Yeah, right. It's just ride the moment.
That's right.
So as far as upcoming games go, Ball State Cardinals are at Tennessee. That is this Thursday, September the 1st at 7:00 on SEC Network. So ESPN's FPI gives Tennessee a 95% chance of winning this. Who am I to disagree? I have the Vols winning this one 49-17. Jesse.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you and ESPN on this one. I think what a lovely way to start the season with a win. I've got the Volunteers 42-21.
All right, Grant.
So yeah, I've got the Vols rolling big, 52-17.
All right, and then Matt says Tennessee rolls big here, 63-21. And I neglected to mention, because I just added my score in there, that for years I've given my score first, and I think that's really unfair. So I'm going to switch it up, and we'll start with Jesse, then Matt, and then I'll go last. So let's talk about Louisiana Tech Bulldogs at Missouri. That's also Thursday night, September the 1st at 8:00 on ESPNU. So, ESPN's FPI, they give Mizzou a 77% chance of winning this game. Jesse, what are your thoughts?
Again, mediocrity is my thought. So I'm going to go with a mediocre score. I think the Tigers pull it off 28-13.
All right. Grant.
So Louisiana Tech, they played Mississippi State to the wire in the opener last year. So I think they cover the spread this year, 31-17 Missouri.
All right. And then Matt has Mizzou winning 28-10. I have Mizzou 41-21. All right. Oops. That is not what I said. All right. Next we have the Sam Houston Bearcats at Texas A&M, Saturday, September the 3rd at noon on the SEC Network. Let's see. I'm trying to look at some of the stats on this. Oh, yeah, I just put my thoughts on the score. I didn't give a whole lot of FPI. I mean, I think you guys kind of know what's up here. Jesse, what do you got?
I've unfortunately got Texas A&M winning 42-13.
All right, Grant.
I think A-Chain has a field day out there. A&M wins 48-7.
All right. I got A&M 63-3. And I think that those 3 points for Sam Houston come in when A&M is in their third and fourth string. So, all right, let's talk about Cincinnati at Arkansas, Saturday, September the 3rd at 3:30 on ESPN. All right, now this one's a little bit more interesting. FPI gives Arkansas a 60% chance of winning this one. Look out for Cincinnati. They got into the playoff last year, and although they got demolished by Alabama, they're trying to build on that positive success, right? So they did lose a lot on the draft, especially on the defensive side. So might open some doors for Arkansas. Jesse, what do you got?
Yeah, absolutely. They were a playoff contender, and they are not playing Alabama this weekend. They're playing Arkansas, who, while on the rise, I think it will be a good game to watch. So I'm going to pick the Razorbacks 31-21.
Okay, Grant.
Yeah, this is not a Desmond Ridder-led Cincinnati team. I do think Fickle will have a good game plan for the game. I think Arkansas is just going to be too big and too tough on the line. It's going to wear them down over time. So I put 38-24 Arkansas, and Arkansas is going to kind of seal with a late score, 38-24.
Okay. I do have Arkansas winning this one 31-24. So Matt has been putting scores in here too. He's got Arkansas 28-24 in this one. Did I read his? What was the last one I read? Tennessee rolls. I get that one.
Yeah, I don't think you read Texas A&M. I think you read everything.
A&M for him was Texas A&M 45-14. He says both scores for Sam Houston come in the fourth quarter. So, all right. All right, now let's talk about Oregon at Georgia, an intriguing matchup. Jesse, what are your thoughts on this one?
I want to see how Bo Nix plays when he's not at Auburn, and if it's any better, which I honestly don't think it will be. But I still think that, like we mentioned, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Georgia. I think they're going to need to settle themselves a little bit. So Oregon might get a couple scores early, but then I think Georgia finishes them out. So I'm picking the Bulldogs 32-17.
Okay. Grant, what you got?
I think that Dan Lanning being familiar with Georgia is going to help a little bit, but I still think that Georgia is going to be having roasted duck for dinner. I've got Georgia winning 34-13.
All right. Matt has Georgia 35-14. So FPI has Georgia 92% chance of winning this one, but you can't underestimate them. And it's like you said, especially with a guy who's familiar with UGA and Dan Lanning. Bo Nix, wild card. So really no way to really kind of predict that or talk about that. I do think ultimately it's a tough welcome for Dan Lanning, though. I got the Dogs winning 34-17. let's see, 34-17. And then next we have the Troy Trojans at Ole Miss.
So Matt also picked UGA 35-14.
Oh, did I not say that? Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Troy Trojans at Ole Miss, 4:00 on SEC Network. All right, Jesse, what do you have for this one?
I have Ole Miss taking this one, despite the fact that Troy has given some SEC teams some problems in the past. I think they'll get a score, well, they'll get some, but I think Ole Miss will settle in, and I'm picking them 38-10.
Okay. Grant, what you got?
So I've got Ole Miss 45-24. I do think Troy will put up a little bit of a fight in the first half, score some points on a kind of a weaker Ole Miss D, even though they are getting better, like we talked about. And plus, Ole Miss, they play with 4 downs to Troy's 3. I mean, they can't go wrong. So
that's true.
It's poor Troy.
And there you go. Matt has Ole Miss winning 45-10. Look, I've got basically the same. Obviously Ole Miss big favorite in this one, and they win 41-17. Next we have Mercer at Auburn. Our very own Mercer Bears from here local. 7:00 on ESPN Plus. Jesse, what are your thoughts on this one?
Not a lot. I'm picking the Tigers, Auburn Tigers, 31-13.
Grant.
I've got Auburn winning 41-10. I wrote boring game. Finley is serviceable. We'll see a little Calzada.
I looked at FPI for each one of these. There's basically 100% chance for Auburn winning this game. I'm going to say that they win 41-17. Matt has them 38-13. So there we go. And then we have the Utah Utes, which makes me think of this always.
The 2 Utes.
To what? What is a Ute?
Yes.
My
For those
Cousin
of you,
Vinny is a classic. If you've never seen it, go watch it right now.
it is. And for those of you who are wondering, it is the Native Americans for whom the state of Utah is named the Utes. So that's fun trivia there. All right. So Utah Utes at Florida, 7:00 ESPN. Jesse, what are your thoughts on this game?
This one's probably going to be a lot closer than any Florida fan is comfortable with. But they've got to start somewhere. Napier's got to get in there, and it's going to take more than one game. I do think the Gators pull it out, but it's a close one, 28-21.
All right. Grant, what do you think?
Yeah, I talked about it earlier. I'm really high on Utah this year for whatever reason. I don't know. I like Kyle Whittingham, but I think Napier's going to start his tenure with a loss to an underrated Utah team. Utah is going to pull it out in the swamp, 31-27.
Are you is this kind of like Wisconsin for you a few years ago? You're going to get a Utah mug maybe, or,
I've already got it.
Oh, I love it.
I was having a crisis. Okay.
We do what we must. All right. Well, speaking of, crazy stuff, Matt has Utah winning this one 28-27. So look at Matt.
Great minds think alike, brother.
There you go. So I have, and let's see, like we've been talking about, I think this is a tough one for Billy Napier to start his Florida coaching career. FPI is basically split down the middle. Utah is going to try to play a tough physical game, as is kind of their identity. I know it's a different conference, but whatever. That's going to be something Napier is wanting for his own squad, that tough physical play. I'm going to say Florida wins 27-24, but I could see the Gators opening with a tough loss. Not to say that they won't be successful, but it's just a tough opener, right? So 27-24 Florida. But I am excited to watch that one. Should be a good one, I think. Next we have Miami of Ohio Redhawks at Kentucky, 7:00 on ESPN Plus. Jesse, what are your thoughts on this game?
I am going to have to say Miami of Ohio might start with a touchdown or so. I'm not super convinced. I'm thinking touchdown, field goal, and then Kentucky starts to settle in. So I'm picking the Wildcats 28-10.
Okay. Grant, what do you got?
I've got Kentucky 35-13. This is going to be kind of like the Mercer Auburn game.
Okay. Matt has them 20-3, so kind of more of the same. I think, I've got basically something similar. I don't think this Miami team has enough in the tank to hang with them. I got UK winning 42-21. All right, there's the next game is the Elon Phoenix, located in Elon, North Carolina, in case you were wondering, at Vanderbilt, 7:00 on ESPN Plus. Jesse, your thoughts on this one?
I think their winning streak continues. Vandy gets it 38-6.
All right, Grant, your thoughts?
Yeah, anchored down. I'm on board with Jesse here. I think the number one offense in the country just keeps rolling. I've got him blasting Elon 52-7.
Yes.
All right, and Matt says, "Who the hell is Elon Phoenix?" He has Vandy winning this one 48-21. Vanderbilt needs to take advantage of this matchup. I think FPI has got them an 87% chance to win. Might be sloppy as they figure things out, but I mean, I don't see this game being a ton different from the Hawaii game, honestly. I think it's kind of more of the same. I got them, according to the experts, they think it's going to be a little bit closer. I'm going to go Vandy 21-14.
Hey, but if Elon did win, it'd be like the most Vandy thing ever.
Wouldn't it? Get out the gate with this epic win, and then
Elon would be like, "We can play in the SEC."
Jesse, do you remember a few years ago when Vandy started the season 3-0? Maybe it was 4-0,
and they wanted Bama.
They had Bama, and their player was like, "Alabama, you're next," and that's how he said it too. I don't even remember who it was.
And it was a very rough next week for them.
It was because number one, you just don't say that. And then number two, it's just inviting disaster when you do that. So, all right. So speaking of Alabama, Utah State Aggies at Alabama, 7:30 on SEC Network. Jesse, your thoughts on this one?
I don't even know where Utah State's located. I mean, obviously in Utah, but I couldn't what place.
It's out there.
It's somewhere in Utah. So I'm going to go with my Tide, 51-13.
Okay. Grant?
Yeah, I've got Bama rolling 45-6. I put Saban doing Saban things. He'll call off the dogs sometime in the third. So,
yeah, Matt has Bama winning 48-10. Sorry, all these names flying around. Anyway, so while Bama might want to go ahead and play the Aggies of Texas A&M, they're going to have to settle for the Utah State variety for their opener. And I think it's going to be an absolute beatdown. Bama 52-10. Honestly, that's probably a merciful score, I think. So yeah, it should be a blowout. All right, next we have the Memphis Tigers at Mississippi State, 7:30 on ESPNU. Jesse, what do you got?
Memphis has given them trouble in the past. So they're not going to lose, but I'm going to pick Mississippi State 35-13. So I think Memphis scores just a little bit in this one.
Okay. Grant, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there, Jesse. Season openers for Leach have been a little shaky in the past. And but the thing is, this isn't the same, Mike Norvell Memphis team. So I've got Mississippi State winning 31-17.
Okay. Matt has Mississippi State 38-13. I think the air raid may have a little bit of a slow start, obviously first game of the season, but eventually they kind of get rolling in the second half. I have Mississippi State. What do I have? I have them winning 38-21. 38-21. All right. So next we have Georgia State Panthers at South Carolina, 7:30 on ESPN Plus. Jesse, what is your prediction?
I'm interested to see the South Carolina team. I think starting against Georgia State will be a nice way to ease into it with Spencer Rattler. So I think that the Gamecocks are going to come out and win this one decently. So I'm going with South Carolina 31-10.
All right, Grant.
Oh, Georgia State, man, that brings back some painful memories. I don't think the same thing is going to happen to South Carolina as what happened to us on August 31st, 2018. But in any case, I've got South Carolina winning 31-13. Rattler and company playing Beamer ball. That they're going to look good.
Okay. Matt has South Carolina winning this one 35-10. I agree. I think we're going to catch a glimpse of what this new South Carolina offense is capable of. I got South Carolina winning 35-21. All right. And then the final game of the week is actually going to be Sunday, September 4th. That is Florida State versus LSU at 7:30 from Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. Jesse, what are your predictions for this one?
Florida State's been trash, hot trash. LSU is a huge question mark for me as well. So I think we might see a little bit of football. I'm going to go with LSU 28-17.
Okay, Grant, what are you thinking on this one?
I think that Jesse's being a little too hard on Florida State. Now, I'm no Seminole fan, but I do think that they started showing signs of life and improvement towards the back half of last season. I think they continue that momentum moving forward. But like you said, LSU does have a ton of question marks, but they still do have a lot of talent on the team. Quarterback for LSU, I don't know, but I still think LSU pulls it out 24-21.
Okay. Matt has LSU winning this one 28-20. Look, I'm really intrigued by this matchup. These are two big programs. They're trying to rebuild, although FSU, I think, has a little bit longer road. I think LSU has the talent, and only a couple of years removed from a championship. We forget that it wasn't that long ago they were on top of the world. It's not like they don't know how to win there. I think Brian Kelly will get a pretty good win in the Superdome in his first game as LSU's head coach. I got LSU in a close one, 27-24. All right. Well, that does it for last week's games. So excited to finally watch, besides Vandy, Hawaii, to finally watch some SEC football. It's going to be good. So that brings us to our Just for Fun segment, and it's a fun one this week. I mean, it's always fun, but a little bit extra. In honor of Bryant Denny Stadium approving alcohol sales, what would each coach order at a bar? So Jesse, I'd like to start with you and Mark Stoops. What is he ordering when he goes into a bar?
No doubt in my mind, he only goes to whiskey bars, and he is ordering a double Pappy Van Winkle meat.
All right. All right. I like that one. Kirby Smart.
Kirby Smart is always extraordinarily jazzed at all points in time and is just like a little firecracker. So he's getting a vodka Red Bull.
That checks out.
Done.
That checks out. Sam Pittman.
Twisted tea.
I love it.
Drinks twisted teas. And if they don't have him at the bar, he brings his own.
Right. He just brings his own. Yeah. Brian Harsin.
Brian Harsin, because he just seems like a pain. And this is a drink that every bartender hates to make. And also he lives in the middle of cow country. So he is drinking a White Russian.
All right.
Nice.
And then Mike Leach.
Mike Leach has to drink something that seems a little pirate-esque. So he's got to have some rum. So Mike Leach is going to drink a Dark and Stormy.
Nice.
Very good. Yeah, and maybe as a second, maybe like some Captain Morgan, maybe, I don't know.
Mojito guy.
Yeah, he's a big mojito guy. I can definitely see that.
There
Or
you
just
go.
drink Malibu straight out of the bottle.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So we're gonna do Grant. We're gonna get yours, and then I'll get Matt's also. So you have Eli Drinkwitz first. What do you got?
Okay, so Eli Drinkwitz, I definitely peg as a wine guy. And I kind of thought about this when I saw it, and I was kind of torn between red and white, and I really spent a lot of time pondering that one. But I ended up settling on like a Pinot Grigio for Eli Drinkwitz. I think you have this nice little wine goblet ready to go.
All right.
Is it a wine club?
Yeah, probably.
Matt says for Eli Drinkwitz, he's going to do the scotch and water. Hold the scotch. said with crap eating grin. Stop giving me drinky, he says.
And it's a wine and book club. Thank you.
There you go.
Yes, they just finished like where the crawdads sing. Yeah.
That's it. All right. Brian Kelly. Grant.
So Brian Kelly, I've got him pegged as like a rum and coke guy. One of those guys at the bar, has a lot of money, kind of hits on the bartender, whatever. Rum and coke guy.
Yeah.
So I think with this little cocktail straw sticking up.
Matt has blank. Apparently he's just was at a loss for Brian Kelly. Who knows? He's an enigma. Let's go with Billy Napier. What do you got, Grant?
Yeah, so I think Billy Napier is kind of a classy guy. So I picked him with like a double bourbon on the rocks, nothing fancy, just getting the job done.
Okay. Matt has him as a red wine. He strikes me as the wine type.
He could be a wino. Yeah. He can hang out with Drinkwitz.
There you go. And then Lane Kiffin.
Oh, whatever's cheap for Lane. Okay. So like Pabst Blue Ribbon, Natty Light, Bush Light, whatever they drink at frat parties and stuff. And it's funny because I saw Matt's answers pop in and we had like the same thing written down. Once again, great minds.
Yep, he said Natty Light as well, the official beer of the Ole Miss frat party. So,
sir,
not wrong.
All right, Clark Lee.
Yeah, so Clark Lee, I think him as just a brass tacks kind of guy. I think he's just drinking water. He's just focused on Vanderbilt being the best in the country. He's just focusing on that weekend over Elon.
There you go.
Phoenix.
That's it.
And he's just getting water. Yep.
Yeah, Matt has Clark Lee as Pepsi. He's a Pepsi kind of guy.
Yeah, he just doesn't seem like a drinker,
Yeah. I thought it was pretty funny.
Because in Nashville, which is just
right.
All drinking.
Well, in hindsight, he did say Vanderbilt was going to be the best team in the country. So maybe he's a drinker. Yeah,
he's on the sauce already.
Delusional.
Yeah, he's doing something. The devil's lettuce. Who knows?
That's it. All right, so I had Josh Heupel, and he's an Oklahoma alumni, but he's at Tennessee now, so I think he's going to go with the most popular Tennessee whiskey, Jack Daniels. When he's feeling a little celebratory, he'll mix in some Coke with that. I got for Shane Beamer. I have nothing to back this up, but in my mind, Shane has always thought that Beam was close enough to Beamer, so he drinks Jim Beam. He's kind of edgy though, so he drinks the Devil's Cut. So.
I was gonna say, I hope it's not the white label.
No. So, all right. So you're gonna like this one, Jesse. So Nick Saban. So there is a beer called the Oatmeal Cream Pie from Pigeon Hill Brewing Company. It's an American. For those who don't know, it's an American brown ale that many say tastes very close to an actual oatmeal cream pie. I feel like this is exactly what Saban would end his day with at a bar. Like his day ends in much the same way it begins.
Yep.
Just with a brown ale spin to it instead of a little Debbie snack. All right.
I want to try that now.
Right. Yeah. I'm intrigued. Jimbo Fisher. So Jimbo's from West Virginia. So we're just going to go with straight up moonshine. Or
who else is from West Virginia?
Who's that?
Nick Saban.
Oh, there
Uncle
you go.
Daddy.
The connections are endless there. So if not, it's any bar he can find that carries something close to that. So the only thing more entertaining than Nick Saban or Jimbo Fisher in a bar would be Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher at the bar together. the tension would be.
They respect each other. Remember?
Oh yeah, we've got the greatest respect for Nick, and all right. So cool. Well, I quite enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. So. That does it for this like supersized version of Pigskins and Pageantry. Thanks, Grant, for filling the shoes of Vol fans everywhere. If you guys would like to contact us, please do so. You can check us out on TikTok at Pigskins and Pageantry. Yes, we are on TikTok. Instagram at Pigskins and Pageantry. Facebook also at Pigskins and Pageantry, Twitter at PPSEC Podcast. Don't forget we are available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. If you guys enjoyed the show, would love for you to subscribe, leave us a review. 5 stars would be great. We greatly appreciate that. We're about to get into it. Can't wait to watch this first full week of games. Until next time, this is Wes. Go Dogs.
It's finally here, y'all. I cannot wait. Roll Tide.
Yes, sir. Been waiting a long time for this, y'all. Let's go Vols. Go Big Orange. We're back, baby. Let's go.